including MI5. The court heard they discussed getting hold of guns, including an AK-47. In September 2011, search warrants were carried out at their homes in Berry Park and Farley Hill, just 2 days before the ringleader, Zahid Iqbal, was about to leave the country on a one-way ticket. The men were arrested in early morning raids in April the following year. All four have pleaded guilty to a number of terror offences.
A man's been jailed for 35 years for the near-fatal shooting of his older brother at his home in Watford. 27-year-old Fezar Kiak, who's also from Watford, arranged the shooting of Mohammed Khan as a revenge attack. The victim suffered a stroke, which has left him unable to walk. Changes to Watford Junction Station are causing traffic gridlock, according to the town's taxi drivers. More than £2 million has been spent redeveloping the station, as Jessica Cooper reports.
Every day, over 15,000 passengers use Watford Junction. Now, £2.2 million has been spent to make the front of the station traffic-free. There's also a new short-stay car park, drop-off area and soon an improved bus station. But taxi drivers say the changes have led to more traffic jams. And Watford's Mayor, Dorothy Thornhill, says residents have also raised concerns about passengers being dropped off on Station Road.
A row over an overgrown hedge outside a Bedfordshire house remains unresolved nearly a year after it was cut back to enable a pavement to be resurfaced. Terry Sullivan from Clifton is demanding compensation from Central Bedfordshire Council after accusing their workers of killing the hedge with excessive pruning. In sport, Watford boss Gianfranco Zola may have to change his team's formation for tonight's championship match at Millwall. The Hornets have defensive problems with Marco Cassetti suspended and 4 players injured. Meanwhile, Luton Town are in conference action at home to Newport tonight, with Jonathan Smith expected to play again in defence. The weather, early rain should clear to give us a largely dry day with sunny spells and a top temperature of 16 degrees Celsius, that's 61 Fahrenheit. There's more news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties. BBC Three Counties Radio. First for news.
Listener Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Lots coming up on the show this morning. As always, I'm sure you'd like to have your say, including the latest on the situation in Boston, as at least 3 people have been killed and more than 100 injured at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. We'll bring you all the latest developments. Watford Junction train station, been there recently? Well, taxi drivers and passengers say new developments there have led to traffic becoming gridlocked. And we'll find out why a Bedfordshire man's been battling with the council a year after they cut his hedge back. Facebook.com/BBC3CR, or you can call me 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Well, let's get more now on the events at yesterday's Boston Marathon. 3 people have been killed and more than 100 injured after 2 explosions went off near the finishing line. This was the terrifying moment when the blasts happened. That's the first time I've heard that. That's horrible, isn't it? Our reporter James Alexander has got more. Good morning, James. What's the latest?
Hi, Ian. Yeah, investigators are now combing the scene after those bomb blasts you heard there yesterday. And yeah, it's horrific to hear those 2 explosions, as you heard, just seconds apart, right by the finish line of the Boston Marathon, the most crowded part of the course. Hundreds of runners ending the race, spectators packed in, waiting to see friends and family. And then suddenly this awful double explosion, smoke everywhere, people screaming, confusion, panic, many runners and spectators injured, covered in blood, horrible leg injuries, stomach wounds with all the flying shrapnel. What was a carnival atmosphere, a celebration, became a scene of unimaginable carnage.
Well, one can only assume this is terrorism. Has that been established yet?
It's not been established yet. The federal agencies are being cautious. We don't know if this is a foreign Al-Qaeda-linked plot or some kind of domestic extremists. The FBI are leading the inquiry. They say they're treating this as a potential terrorist investigation, but no rush to judgment so far. This was President Obama speaking at the White House.
We still do not know who did this or why. and people shouldn't jump to conclusions before we have all the facts. But make no mistake, any responsible individuals, any responsible groups will feel the full weight of justice.
That's President Obama there insisting justice will be done.
What do we know about the victims, James?
Well, we've got few details, Ian, about the victims so far, but it is being reported an 8-year-old boy is among the dead. We believe he was waiting for his father to finish the race with his mother and sister, who were apparently injured as well. And, some really horrific stories coming out, and sadly, probably more horrific stories to come through the morning.
We've been hearing the heroic jobs that the emergency services have been taking part in over there.
Yeah, medical teams were quickly there, and we hear reports this morning of doctors who were running the marathon, treating the injured. Hospitals have had to do a number of amputations overnight, some of them double amputations, and clearly, you're talking about runners here. This could hardly be more devastating.
I'm imagining there'll be a knock-on effect in terms of security over here in Britain, particularly with the London Marathon coming up soon.
Well, yeah, exactly, and police are reviewing now security for the London Marathon, clearly another of the world-famous marathons that already there is a tight security operation. They'll be looking again at the threat level. Also, security being reviewed around Margaret Thatcher's funeral tomorrow. In Boston, the authorities there due to hold a press conference later this morning.
James Alexander, thank you very much indeed.
It's a big, big city and it's always the same. Can never be too pretty. Tell me your name, is it out of line? If I was to be bold and say, would you be mine? Because I may be a beggar and you may be the queen. I know I may be on a downer, I'm still ready to dream. Though it's 3 o'clock, the time is just the time it takes for you to talk. So if you're lonely, why don't you say you're not lonely? Oh, you're a silly girl, I know, I heard it's so. It's just like you to come and go and know me. No, you don't even know me. You're so sweet, so dry. Oh my, you caught my eye. A girl like you's just irresistible. The lights are all out, but it's as much as I can do, to figure you out. And I must confess, my heart's all broken pieces and my head's a mess. And it's 4 in the morning and I'm walking along beside the ghost of every drink I hear who's ever done wrong. And it's you, whoa, that's got me going crazy for the things you do. And so if you're crazy, I don't care, you amaze me. But you're a stupid girl. Oh me, oh my, you talk, I die, you smile, you laugh, I cry. Only a girl like you could be lonely. And it's a crying shame if you would think the same. A boy like me's just irresistible.
Am I the only person in the world that hates butterflies? I'll tell you why. I hate them. There was just one popped up on the TV, and I said to work experience Ollie, there was just a butterfly on the TV. He went, really? Well, this time of the day, I mean, yeah, there was actually one being shown on the television. There wasn't one in my airtight box studio. Muppet. They're horrible things. I can't walk through butterfly houses. I can't do it because you're not allowed to swat them. And I don't like things coming towards my face, just flying. You know, they're a little bit random, a little bit on the wind. I feel I need to get this off my chest. Seeing them on TV has set me all a quiver. It really makes me uncomfortable. And if the last time I was in a butterfly house, in fact, I think the only time I was in a butterfly house, I was with my son and my wife, and we went in, and I didn't like it because it's kind of tropical in there. I don't like tropical climates. And then these butterflies started coming to me, and I said to my wife, I'm really sorry, I have to get out. She went, what do you mean? I said, I can't even explain it. I'll tell you more on the other side. I then ducked my head, put my hand over my head, and the other hand over my face, like this. It was like this, and ran out. Oh, it's horrible. You're not allowed to swat them. And imagine if, like, 3 of them got tangled up in your hair. And then one got in your mouth. Oh, they are disgusting. Listen, I'm a vegetarian. I'm all for animal rights and all of that. I would not shed a single tear if we got rid of all of the butterflies and the moths in the world. If there was a butterfly and moth genocide, I would be here going, yeah, well, you know, these things have to happen sometimes. I'm sorry to go off on the rant like that at this time in the morning, but that's really made me uncomfortable seeing that on the television screen. Should we have a quick look at the front pages? The Daily Telegraph. A lot of these front pages, of course, about the situation in Boston, and we'll have more on that later on. Big Ben is to fall silent for Thatcher. The last time the great clock of Westminster was silenced intentionally, it was to honour the man who led Britain through its darkest hour to victory in the Second World War. A friend of mine tweeted that yesterday a lot of these cuts were brought in to the cap on benefits, and it was announced that Big Ben would be silent. As my friend Adam Hess rightly pointed, surely this is a conspiracy, because everyone was tweeting about Big Ben, not about the cuts. The hilarious Matt cartoon this morning is a gentleman with some shears cutting his donga off from the clock donga. I don't know what you were thinking. Jeez. Sex is told to sit apart at Muslim university talk. Pig created in a lab could bring home GM bacon, and of course bomb carnage at Marathon. Let's do a couple more papers and we'll do the rest a little before 7 at some point. The Times. 2 bombs bring carnage to the Boston Marathon. At least 2 people, including an 8-year-old boy. Why does it make it sadder when it's a kid like that? I don't know, but it does, doesn't it? An 8-year-old boy were killed and 132 injured yesterday. What else is there? Oh, this is terribly sad. It's a lot of sad stories this morning. That suicide mother. Oh, dear, oh, dear. The Guardian. Terror at the finish line. Twin blasts hit Boston Marathon and Westminster bells to fall silent to mark Thatcher funeral. No, not Mark Thatcher's funeral, to mark Thatcher funeral is what they say there. We'll do the rest. Horrible newspapers today. Horrible. We'll do the rest of them a little bit later on and see if we can find something perhaps a little bit jollier in the newspapers as well. 08459 455 555 is the phone number. Facebook.com/BBC3CR. Right, 6:15. Let's get the travel news now. Here's Adam Glynn.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thanks, Ian. Good morning. Things looking nice and clear if you're heading for the roads right now. Across the 3 counties, we have no delays at present. M1, A1M and M40 all looking clear, and the M25 running OK, even through the roadworks between junction 23 and 25. Speed sensors aren't flagging up anything unusual on any of the other major routes, so the A5's looking clear, as is the A404. And if you're heading for the station right now, thankfully on the departure boards, it's looking like a good service. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Adam. Right, 6:15, it's Tuesday the 16th of April. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. 2 explosions near the finishing line of the Boston Marathon are so far known to have claimed 3 lives, and more than 100 others have been injured. A Watford man has been jailed for 35 years for the near-fatal shooting of his older brother at his home in the town. In sport, Ronnie O'Sullivan says he doesn't know what to expect when he returns to the Crucible Theatre on Saturday to begin the defence of his World Snooker title. I'll tell you now, Ronnie, there'll be some tables with green bays on and some balls, just to give you a heads up there. The weather today for Beds, Herts and Bucks. Early rain should clear to give us a largely dry day with sunny spells and a top temperature of 16 degrees. Coming up, Watford Junction train station. Have you been there recently? I've not been there for a while. Well, taxi drivers and passengers say new developments there have led to traffic becoming gridlocked. We'll hear more before 6:30.
BBC Three Counties Radio. Late Kickoff is back. The Football League show that takes you to the heart of your club.
And with BBC iPlayer, you can get closer to your team wherever and whenever you want.
Meeting the players, the managers and the backroom staff.
It's much more than match highlights and balls in the back of the net.
We bring you the stories that need to be told and tackle the issues that matter most to you.
Late Kickoff.
The new series.
bbc.co.uk/iPlayer.
And search for Late Kickoff.
Because we know football the way you do.
If you use Watford Junction train station, could you give me a call? 08459 455 555.
You make me feel so young. You make me feel so spring has sprung. And every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I wanna go play hide and seek. I wanna go and bounce the moon just like a toy balloon. You and I are just like a couple of tots running across a meadow, picking up lots of forget-me-nots. You make me feel so young. You make me feel there are songs to be sung, bells to be rung, and a wonderful fling to be flung. And even when I'm old and gray, I'm gonna feel the way I do today, 'cause you make me feel so young. You make me feel so young. You make me feel so spring has sprung. And every time I see you grin, I'm such a happy individual. The moment that you speak, I wanna go and play hide and seek. I wanna go and bounce the moon just like a toy balloon. You and I are just like a couple of tots running across a meadow, picking up lots of forget-me-nots. You make me feel so young. You make me feel there are songs to be sung, bells to be rung, wonderful fling to be flung. And even when I'm old and gray, I'm gonna feel the way I do today, 'cause you make me feel so young. You make me feel so young. You make me feel so young. Ooh, you make me feel so young.
Have you been to Watford Junction Station recently? Well, more than £2 million has been spent to make the forecourt pedestrian free. Every day, 15,000 passengers use the station. There's now a new short-stay car park and a new bus station is nearing completion. But taxi drivers and passengers say it's led to gridlock traffic at peak times. Our reporter Jessica Cooper has been there to find out more.
So here at the front of the station there's a red area on the road, which is where some cars and some taxis have also been dropping passengers off. Only space for about 3 cars there, and then around the corner there is a new taxi rank. and further on from that a tunnel which takes you through to a long stay car park. But at the very front of the station there is a new pedestrianised area, a big walkway really, and these changes were all about making it more friendly for pedestrians and cyclists because 15,000 people use this station every day. What do you think about the changes then?
I think I was a little disappointed when I first saw them actually, and I'm not sure why they've got the bike racks right here where, you know, this is kind of key pedestrian flow. Overall, any changes, good change I think, and this certainly needs some change here at Watford Junction.
Well, I suppose it's a good idea, but to me it's a waste of space really, isn't it? What's the idea of it? I don't really know.
It's caused a lot of inconvenience, but it looks a bit better.
When you say inconvenience, what have you noticed then?
The buses, like some of the bus routes, my bus, it now has to go all the way down there instead of right outside the station.
Well, I think it's much nicer. They look nice and it's much more comfortable, much easier to get into the station if you've got luggage.
So we just had a situation where 2 cars on Station Road in front of the train station have basically stopped in the middle of the road to let passengers get out, and that led to another car getting stuck, not being able to get round a roundabout. 2 minutes have gone by and now 2 more cars are stopped in the road. This time the passenger went to get out of a car at the same time as a bus was coming in the other lane, which meant the traffic came to a stop and nobody could move.
Hello, my name is Shafiq Ahmed. I'm the chairman of Watford Hackney Carriage Drivers Association.
So Shafiq, we've got in a taxi here outside Watford Junction, and just explain to me what's different with the taxi rank to what it used to be like.
Before, the cars used to go straight down, turn right onto Woodford Road and go whichever direction they want to. This new rank, we're having two-way traffic going into Watford Junction car park, and there's no access, so cars are coming back on themselves, which is causing problems for taxi drivers and the people who use the car park. Then we have incidents here where people do not know where the drop-off point is. That is causing immense problems because they are pinching our ranking spaces. The actual rank and the whole setup, it's a accident waiting to happen. To be honest, the previous setup was 100 times better than what we are experiencing now. I urge all authorities in Watford to involve us in the trying to resolve this issue in a positive way. And because taxi drivers are on the front line, they're the ones that are experiencing the volatile passengers, and we're the ones that are experiencing the congestion problem and total discomfort for passengers and for us. And I request the local authorities to come up with let's all sit down and work this situation out, resolve it as quickly as possible before a major accident happens, whether it's a taxi driver getting injured or a general public. It doesn't matter. We need to get this resolved as soon as possible.
Shafiq Ahmed, the chairman of the Watford Hackney Carriage Drivers Association, ending that report. Well, in around an hour's time, we'll be speaking to the Mayor of Watford, Dorothy Thornhill. And I want to hear from you this morning. What do you think of the changes at Watford Station? An improvement? Does it look better? It looks better. But does it make traffic around there at peak times unbearable? 08459 455 555.
We come on this loop, John B., my grandfather and me. Around Nassau town we did roam, drinking all night. Got into a fight. Well, I feel so broken, I wanna go home. Hoist up your John B. sail, see how the mainsail sets. Call for the
This is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. We'll get the travel and the news in a minute. Let's have a quick look at the rest of the front pages. It's all Boston, and a lot of the papers using the same photo as well. In fact, I think most of them are, of the bomb actually going off. The Independent, terror at the finishing line, at least 2 dead and many injured in Boston Marathon bomb bloodbath. And what? No ding-dong. Big Ben silenced for Thatcher funeral. And according to this, bossy girls make the best leaders. Who'd have thought it, eh? The Daily Express, the 48-hour diet. The only diet you'll ever need. Look younger, live longer and feel great. Inside today, body-boosting tips. The 48-hour diet. Plan prepared by Amanda Hamilton, nutrition expert on ITV's This Morning. Never heard of her in my life. And I've been on that show. I have never heard of her in my life. Pages 32 and 33. Let's find out how this 48-hour diet, the only diet I'm ever going to need. Let's find out exactly how it works. Boost your body for life. Nutritionist Amanda Hamilton explains how her exclusive plan keeps chronic illnesses at bay. Chronic illnesses at bay? I'm in. I hate chronic illnesses. Of all the illnesses, the chronic ones are the worst. It's important to establish that fasting is not starvation. So she's recommending fasting. Which doesn't tell you what the diet is. It says here are the benefits of the 48-hour diet: the heart, the brain, the diabetes, and the anti-aging. But it doesn't tell you what you have to do. You might feel a bit yucky at first. Right. Hang on a second. Suddenly those chronic illnesses aren't looking so bad. You might feel a bit yucky at first, but that's usually due to the headaches you get from caffeine withdrawal. Suddenly, you can't have caffeine in this 48-hour diet. Right, OK. These effects don't usually last long, and most people find they're outweighed by the benefits of fasting. The important thing to establish is fasting is not starvation, which, of course, is dangerous. This is about increasing the gaps between meals to 48 hours, is it? Suddenly, Amanda Hamilton, nutrition expert on ITV's This Morning. I'm not so keen on this. I'm not so keen on your 48-hour diet, the only diet I'll never need. Right, let's get the travel news now. Here's Adam Glynn.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
And at the minute, things still looking pretty decent. If you're driving through Bedford, remember there are some roadworks along Cemetery Road, the B560. They're just around the junction with the High Street and Ridge Road. Through Beaconsfield, Park Lane, temporary lights are up for works between Candlemas Lane and the A40. Though looking at the A40 itself, speed sensors showing that it's moving well. Some roadworks in Enfield that will probably cause things to slow as the morning goes on the A10, the Great Cambridge Road, through Bulls Cross. We've got roadworks around the junction with Bullsmore Lane, the A1055. That gets slow on the average morning anyway, so it's likely to get even busier this morning. Trains still looking good. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. 6:30, time for the news and sport now. Here's Catherine.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. The headlines: 2 explosions near the finishing line of the Boston Marathon are so far known to have claimed 3 lives. More than 100 others have been injured. 4 Luton men who discussed bombing the town's territorial army barracks will be sentenced at Woolwich Crown Court later. And a Watford man's been jailed for 35 years for the near-fatal shooting of his older brother at his home in the town.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks Sport.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The Metropolitan Police will review their security plans for Sunday's London Marathon after the bombing in Boston. The London Marathon's chief executive, Nick Bittell, has confirmed the race will still go ahead. Meanwhile, in football, Watford manager Gianfranco Zola may have to change his team's formation for tonight's championship match at Millwall. The Hornets have defensive problems with Marco Cassetti suspended and 4 players injured. Zola says he does have some options and may change his system of using 3 centre-halves.
We'll see, something that I might do. I will consider, I will think about it. I'm already considering it, but I haven't made my mind up yet. We have a few little problems over there, but we come out with solutions previously, and we can do the same.
MK Dons are at Colchester tonight in League One, knowing they must win to stand any chance of reaching the playoffs. The Dons manager Carl Robinson has a fully fit squad to choose from, with the exception of goalkeeper Dave Martin. The Dons are 4 points off the playoffs with 3 games remaining, and Robinson says it's still achievable.
They still feel it's an achievable goal. Listen, this team is capable of winning 3 games on the spin. If you do that to win, they've got to win 2. So you've got to look at the fact that over the next sort of few games, it's all or nothing.
In the conference, Luton Town are at home to Newport, with Jonathan Smith expected to play in defence again. In League 2, Wycombe Wanderers host Northampton. The Chairboys manager Gareth Ainsworth set to make changes to his team, which beat Aldershot at the weekend. And finally, in rugby, Worcester centre Josh Matavesi will appear at a disciplinary hearing today after being cited following a challenge on Neil de Kock during Sunday's defeat at Saracens in the Aviva Premiership. And that's your latest news and sport. More from me at 7 o'clock.
Across Beds, Hearts and Bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning. Coming up in the next half an hour, we'll find out why a Bedfordshire man has been battling with the council for compo a year after they cut his hedge back. BBC Three Counties Radio, first for news. And David Cameron wants you to be able to build a larger extension to your home without needing planning permission. But he's facing a rebellion by some Conservative MPs over the proposals, including St Albans MP Anne Main. We'll look at what the plans could mean for you. 08459 455 555. Just a heads up of what's happening later on BBC Three Counties Radio. From midday, Nick Coffer's back, and he'll be joined by a very interesting gentleman, George Salt. In 2010, he entered the Guinness Book of Records for being the oldest man to climb Mount Kilimanjaro at the age of 82. You've got to wonder why these people do these things. Why can't you just sit at home and watch a DVD? Watch The Wedding Planner or Made in Manhattan or something. 08459 455 555. A little bit of Sheena Easton. Well, why not?
Everything's alright. Nighttime
Catherine Boyle has reminded me that this song was performed on a TV show called The Mini Pops. Anyone here know what The Mini Pops was? Does anyone remember The Mini Pops? You won't remember it, Ollie. You literally probably weren't born. 1982. Were you born in 1982? No, he wasn't. Oh, wow. So The Mini Pops, it was a show where they got kids, and by kids, I mean, 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds, to sing along to pop songs, OK? But they would dress up as the original pop performer and sing adult pop songs. It was incredible. I'm looking it up on Wikipedia. Here's an excerpt from The Observer, 27th of February, 1983. The final act of last week's show featured a chubby blonde totlet, thigh-high... Well, I won't read that bit. In a rah-rah skirt and high heels. Her black knickers were extensively flashed as she bounced around singing the words, "See that guy all dressed in green? He's not a man, he's a loving machine." It was the most bizarre... Honestly, it was the most bizarre, inappropriate programme of all time, and I'd completely forgotten about the mini-pops. Sorry to just go off on a slight tangent there, but let's deal with more relevant, current and perhaps slightly more serious issues. A row over an overgrown hedge outside a Bedfordshire house remains unresolved nearly a year after it was cut back to enable a pavement to be resurfaced. Terry Sullivan from Clifton says the pruning process was excessive and the hedge is dying. Well, Central Bedfordshire Council says its assessors are looking at Mr Sullivan's claim and apologise for the length of time it's taking. We sent our reporter Iain Duncan to find out what happened to the hedge.
It just looks horrible. From the outside it looks dreadful. You know, it really isn't a pleasant sight at all. The amount of rain we had last year, drought's not affected it, but it's unbelievable really, you know, and they just don't really want to know. They had an insurance company and they sent a guy around to have a look at it, and he reckons it's not dead.
The hedge is about 8 foot high. You've got 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet of greenery, and beneath it it's just all brown shoots.
Yeah, that's it basically. It hasn't grown anything this year at all. Normally it's sort of about 2 or 3 foot at the top. Haven't had it cut back this year, haven't needed to, and it's just brown. And also they did it the wrong time of the year. I think there was a time factor on the growing. I'm not an expert, but neither are they by the looks of it. And the guy who actually cut it didn't even bother knocking on the door. He just turned up one day. It was absolutely chucking down like last summer, all summer. Cut it, took it away and disappeared. And I came out and took a couple of pictures of it, and I just couldn't believe what he'd done.
And the reason they cut it because it was overhanging this pavement, which they've resurfaced.
If it was overhanging millimetres or a little bit. I mean, this has gone back so far. It's gone right back almost to the roots, and it was here planted, I think, when they built the houses in 1972. So there's been no issues before. So suddenly it's a big issue.
And what would you like to see done?
Well, basically, I mean, this insurance company, who are based in Wales, have sent this person round to inspect who knows nothing about trees. He's actually openly admitted that to me. Well, I'd like to see him pay for another hedge, basically, or a fence, because it's dead now. No good at all. There's a councillor got involved, and he said it's an ongoing thing, but it wasn't ongoing in February, so why is it suddenly ongoing now? Because somebody's got involved, I think.
And there's no hope for this hedge as it stands. It will have to go eventually one way or another.
Well, I would think so. I mean, I had a guy round to have a look at it about replacing it back in October before the insurance quote, and he laughed. He couldn't believe that somebody had cut a hedge like this. He's a hedge expert, and well, he couldn't believe it. He said, who cut it, or should we say who slaughtered it, he actually said.
How much of an overhang was there?
Well, it's very little. I mean, you can tell from the top. Look, if you draw a straight line down, I mean, you're looking at probably maybe 2 or 3 inches, but it's not so much the overhang, it's how far they've cut it back, and then sort of wash their hands of it, because of when they asked permission to cut it, I couldn't get the guy I usually use to cut it for me, because I was going away overseas for about 5 weeks, and so they said I'd get somebody to do it. I said, well, yeah, you have my permission on the proviso that if it dies, you're responsible, and they've sort of tried to renege on that promise. If I'd have had my guy out, it would have been cut lovely. I mean, I try and keep it nice, because the land I can get a bit excited, and it can get overgrown very easily. I daren't have him down to have a look at it, because I think he'd probably cry, so it's just amazing, really.
Where do you see this going next?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to hope the council are going to contact me and sort of switch their opinion of it, whether they bring an expert or so-called expert rather than the guy they sent. It's not really hard to see. I mean, you and I are no experts in fences or hedges, but it looks pretty gruesome, doesn't it?
And we're standing on the other side of the fence now, Terry, and evidence that the hedge on the inside is dying away.
Well, yeah. I mean, the front is where they've trimmed it. Now they sort of moved into the inside, and when you just touch it, and it's all just, the leaves are just coming away. It's in front of you. It's just unbelievable, really. It's only taken a year, but it's just dying.
And in contrast to the front, there's still some greenery coming through here, as you'd expect, but that would be the normal growth pattern at the front of the house, and that's not happening.
No, I mean, it hasn't been cut for over 18 months now, because it was done October 2011 and it was due to be done sort of like June 2012, but they got at it first, so there was no point in me cutting it.
Well, Central Bedfordshire Council says it has a duty to both maintain the public highway and to keep it clear and accessible, which is why it contacted Mr Sullivan about pruning his hedge. It used to encroach on the footway and it hid the water sluice valve marker, which marks the location of the water main in case of emergencies. We contacted Mr Sullivan twice, this is the council speaking, to ask him to cut the hedge back in order for us to resurface the path, and then arranged with Mr Sullivan to cut it back ourselves.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing. Somewhere beyond the sea, she's there watching for me. If I could fly like birds on high, then straight to her arms I'd go sailing. It's far beyond the star, it's near beyond the moon. I know beyond a doubt my heart will lead me there soon. Beyond the shore, we'll kiss just as before. Happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again I'll go sailing. Just as before, happy we'll be beyond the sea, and never again I'll go sailing. No more.
I flippin' hate butterflies, I hate them. Disgusting things, let's wipe them all off the face of the earth. Well, Kim has texted in 81333, starting, I'm assuming it's her, Kim, text at 3CR. Iain, you're not alone. I've hated butterflies and moths for as long as I can remember. Horrible, evil things. And nobody understands my fear. They don't. People don't get it. Oh, they're so beautiful. They're not. They're disgusting. Moths just fly at your face with their fat, hairy bodies, and butterflies are about to attack when they slowly move their wings open and shut. Disgusting. Well, I guess we can make this whole show about a hatred of butterflies and moths. You're more than welcome to. Paul Scoynes, political reporter, messaged me on Twitter saying, when I was in New Zealand, I drove through a cloud of butterflies. It was terrifying, a horrible experience. We can just discuss your loathing of butterflies and moths, or we can open it up a little bit to those slight irrational fears that you've got that nobody else understands. My mum is afraid of paper clips. I know, only big ones, though. 08459 455 555. What things are you afraid of that nobody else understands? 6:46 is the travel news now with Adam Glynn.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Ian, I am totally with you on butterflies. They are creepy, they are weird, and I do not like them.
Thank you, brother.
Oh, no, it's not right, is it? M25 anti-clockwise, starting to build up from the M1 at junction 21 through to the A404 at Chorleywood junction 18. Then if you're going further round, from the M40 to the M4 junction 16 to 15, starting to look slow on the CCTV cameras around there as well. And if you're driving in toward London, the A1 already pretty slow in Boreham Wood between Stirling Corner and Apex Corner at the A41. Things looking absolutely fine, though, on the M1 and the A1M at the minute. Speed sensors aren't picking up anything strange. And on the trains, we've got a good service right across the three counties. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Adam. Right, 6:47. It's Tuesday, the 16th of April. I'm Iain Lee. These are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. 2 explosions near the finishing line of the Boston Marathon are so far known to have claimed 3 lives and more than 100 others have been injured. 4 Luton men who discussed bombing the town's territorial army barracks will be sentenced at Woolwich Crown Court later. In sport, Watford manager Gianfranco Zola may have to change his team's formation for tonight's championship match at Millwall. Marco Cassetti's serving a suspension and 4 others are out injured. Coming up, David Cameron wants you to be able to build a larger extension to your home without needing planning permission. We'll hear more before 7. And on the subject of that gentleman's hedge, we've had a text from Scott. This bloke shouldn't be on the radio talking about his hedge. It's a private affair. Let's get the weather, shall we, with Elizabeth Rosini. It sounds like private.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's a bit of a damp early start. We've got some outbreaks of light rain and drizzle around. This is a very, very weak weather front just pushing in from the west. It's also quite breezy too, with that southwesterly wind, but happily it will be an improving picture into this afternoon. It will brighten up quite nicely, dry out of course, and we'll see some nice spells of sunshine around at times too. Temperatures up to 14 or 15 degrees Celsius in High Wycombe, in Luton, in Stevenage and Hertford. That's 59 in Fahrenheit. The breeze will ease down this afternoon as well. Now for this evening and overnight, we're going to do the whole thing all over again. So fine end to the day, but then the cloud building again overnight. Temperatures down to 8 or 9 degrees Celsius. Another weather front pushing in tomorrow morning. That's going to give us again a few outbreaks of light rain and drizzle. Nothing more than that really. Very weak indeed. And a lovely afternoon again. Some brightness, some sunshine. Temperatures all the way up to 17 or 18 degrees. Slightly warmer day tomorrow. That's 64 in Fahrenheit. For the rest of the week, from Thursday onwards, the temperatures will dip slightly. There'll be some showers around at times. It will also feel quite blustery at times as well, I suspect. But by the end of the week, it should be fine and dry with some decent spells of sunshine around as well. So spring is going to stay for the rest of the week. That's the forecast.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Every weekday morning from 9.
The JVS Show.
With the biggest questions.
Today on the Big Phone-In, I'm asking, would you support some dog breeds being removed from this country? Should traffic wardens be more lenient? Would the government be right to drop the minimum price for alcohol?
And the biggest opinions.
I think the tax is completely unfair.
It doesn't matter how old they are or how young they are. They're still your children.
It doesn't matter whether it's male or female or what. I'm disgusted with the people. You should have cut them people off.
The JVS Show.
Weekdays from 9.
On BBC Three Counties Radio.
You have a date for half-past 8 tonight. Some distant bell starts chiming now. You wanna see her. You wanna see her. Oh yeah. So you wait and wait. Girl, don't come. The time rolls on, those minutes fly by. You wanna go, but just to try, guy. You wanna see her. You wanna see her. Oh yeah. So you wait and wait. Girl, don't come. You've been stood up, tears fill your eyes. Oh, oh. You hurt inside. You wanna die. Oh, oh. have a date for our best date tonight. Some distant bells start chiming out. You wanna see her, you wanna see her, oh yeah. So you wait and wait, girl don't come. You've been stood up, tears fill your eyes, oh, oh. You hurt inside, you wanna die, oh, oh. You wanna see her, you wanna see her, oh yeah. So you wait and wait, girl don't come, girl don't come, girl don't come.
Sandy Shaw. David Cameron wants you to be able to build a larger extension to your home without needing planning permission. But he's facing a rebellion by some Conservative MPs over the proposals, including St Albans MP Anne Main. Many Tory backbenchers fear the changes will lead to unsightly developments and an increase in disputes between neighbours. The Treasury hopes the policy will give builders more work and boost the economy. Well, Paul Burstow is a former minister and chair of the parliamentary Lib Dems. He's on the line now. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning.
Paul, will you vote against the government today on this?
Yes, I probably will be voting against the government today, and the reason I'll be doing that is that the reasons the government have given for doing this really just don't stack up. It won't promote growth, but it certainly will promote disputes between neighbours, and I think that's a bad thing.
Well, their argument is that by loosening the laws regarding property extensions, that more people will get work done, and that will stimulate the building trade. Is that not going to happen?
No, it won't. Not particularly, because about 9 out of every 10 of these sorts of planning applications are passed by local authorities now. There isn't really a problem to be fixed here. You know, this is a little idea that's sort of masquerading as a big idea, but it's really a very bad idea. And I think what it'll do, instead of really stimulating the growth of our construction industry, is it'll just upset the neighbours who will no longer have an opportunity to raise any concerns about what a neighbour is planning to put in their back garden.
So what exactly would this change mean, then? I could go willy-nilly and build anything I wanted in the back of my house?
It means that you would be able to put into your back garden a building of up to 26 feet into your back garden. So at the moment you would have to seek planning permission to do something at that sort of scale. And that's an important safety valve. It's an opportunity for your neighbours to make a comment about what impact it will have on their privacy, the loss of light and various other things that can cause real friction in a neighbourhood. And it's that sort of safeguard that we, I think, need to continue to protect.
The amendment to allow local authorities to opt in or out of the relaxation of planning rules, you think that they should stay in?
Yes, I mean, I think the amendment that was supported both by Conservative and Liberal Democrat members of the House of Lords is a very sensible proposition. I mean, this government, after all, has said it's committed to local decision-making, indeed passed the whole Act of Parliament for promoting localism, and yet this idea runs a coach and horses through that by effectively sending out a diktat to councils that they have to allow these sorts of developments to take place in all circumstances.
What would you do to stimulate the economy, to help building and small businesses like this? Because they are struggling, aren't they, these small building firms?
Well, I mean, what the government's doing to stimulate growth in the housing market will make a big difference. For example, the Chancellor announced a 5.6 billion boost to housing quite recently in the budget. We are kick-starting a huge public sector building programme for social housing as well. So there is a lot of activity being stimulated to get that growth going. But this is not part of that. This is a very ineffective idea that will cause a great deal of upset and anger in communities were it to be introduced. We think councils should have the ability to be able to decide whether they want to opt in for it. That's a good localist approach to these things. It shouldn't be imposed from on high.
Have you spoken to any of your Lib Dem colleagues? What way do you feel they're going to be voting?
I'm certain there will be a number of my colleagues who share my disquiet about these proposals and are concerned about sort of just basically allowing back garden development to take place without any planning control. As to numbers, I don't know precisely, but I think the government will find it very hard to secure a majority for this in the House of Commons today.
Paul, thanks very much for coming on. Paul Burstow, former Minister and Chair of the Parliamentary Lib Dems. I can see both sides of this. Part of me thinks, that'd be great, you can build what you want, but then if you're the neighbour that's getting the huge, great extension built next door to you and it blocks out a bit of your light and you lose some of the light in the garden and your kitchen... It does sound ridiculous. These laws, these planning application laws are frustrating. I've dealt with them. Man, they're frustrating. And the guy that comes round and checks everything, oh dear, for goodness sakes. But they kind of serve a purpose. Let's have a quick look at the last three newspapers, shall we, before the news with Catherine at 7 o'clock. The Daily Express, again, massacre at the marathon. Moment bombs shook Boston. Boy of 8 among dead as 132 are injured by blasts at finishing line. The Daily Mail, the same photograph. They've all got the same photo. It's unusual, isn't it, that the front pages all have the same photo. Bloodbath at the marathon. Carnage as bombers launch worst US terror strike since 9/11. This is the moment 2 explosions rocked the Boston Marathon yesterday, killing at least 2 people and injuring 100. And the Sun... Boston terror attack, marathon slaughter, child 8 among 2 dead, 110 hurt by twin bombs. And then they've got a little bit on the fact that Ozzy Osbourne and his wife, that lady, are splitting up. Wowzers. 08459 455 555. The other big issue this morning, as well as Hedges, your irrational fears, things that you dislike intensely and no one else quite gets. I hate... with a passion, butterflies and moths. They disgust me. I think they're awful, horrible creatures. And I had to turn the TV off this morning because there were some on there. They really send a shiver down my spine. What things do you hate? My mum, well, she used to. She claims she doesn't mind them now. She used to hate paperclips, but big paperclips. What do you dislike? 08459 455 555 is the phone number. You can go to Facebook as well. Facebook.com/BBC3CR. You can follow me on Twitter at Iain Lee or at BBC3CR. That'll give you all the latest news and information that's happening. I've tweeted a clip of the mini pops as well. I warn you, it's not for the faint-hearted. Here's the travel.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Just looking at the speed sensors at the minute, and it's showing that the M1's looking quite slow on the southbound side from junction 10 through to junction 8, so people definitely starting to get out and about this morning. The A1M's looking busy as well, slow moving from Hitchin through to Stevenage, junction 8 to 7. If you're heading for the M25, anti-clockwise, a few patches where it's starting to get quite slow already. Through the roadworks is looking busy from junction 25 to 23. Further round, it's slow from the M1 to the A404, junction 21 to 18. And then a bit of a queue as you go between the M40 and the M4, junction 16 to 15. That aside, it's not looking too busy in town and city centres yet this morning. Bedford, Milton Keynes, Leighton Buzzard, they're all looking okay on the speed sensors there. Aylesbury's looking clear as well. A41's running okay. Now, if you're heading for the trains, your journey's not too bad this morning. We haven't had any incidents on the rails to affect you. And as of right now, pretty much everything's on time. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. Coming up in the next hour, more on Boston and also more on Watford Junction. What do you think of the changes there? We'll discuss that and more after the news with Catherine Boyle.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. The headlines: Boston bombing leaves 3 dead and 100 injured. Investigation launched after Watford fire, and station improvements blamed for Watford gridlock.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
2 bomb explosions near the finishing line of the Boston Marathon in Massachusetts have killed at least 3 people. More than 100 were wounded. The devices went off seconds apart as runners were ending the race, cheered on by a large crowd. Witnesses spoke of horrific scenes with the streets splattered with blood.
I saw quite a few casualties coming back. I saw one guy with his legs gone at the knees, some ankles and feet missing, shrapnel wounds on people on the sides of the head, and other things. It's just not good.
All of a sudden there was a loud noise, an explosion, big puff of smoke, and then a few seconds later, further up the road away from the finish line, a second explosion, a large puff of smoke, and then ultimate chaos, everybody running everywhere.
4 men who discussed bombing the Territorial Army base in Luton will be sentenced later today. The gang were arrested following an investigation into people travelling to Pakistan for terrorist purposes. Our reporter Tony Fisher was at Woolwich Crown Court.
Ahmed was quoted as saying, in April 2011, I can get an AK, apparently. And he also talked about the cost of bullets. And again, on the 12th of May, an inside job on MI5 was discussed. Hussein said he had a cousin in the US Air Force who could do a lot of damage. There was also discussion about EDL, and Ahmed said, that's why I want to order a thingy or buy a gun. And Ahmed said about guns, we gotta somehow get one though.
A man from Bletchley who committed a string of sex offences as a teenager has failed to clear his name. Last May, Mark Stevens was sentenced to 14 years in prison for raping a girl who was aged just 5 when the first offence took place. The appeal court dismissed the 25-year-old's claim that the case was unfair. Hertfordshire police are investigating a large fire that caused substantial damage to an office block in central Watford last night. The emergency services were alerted to the blaze at the junction of Clarendon Road and Woodford Road shortly after 7:30. It led to the evacuation of Watford Junction Station and the temporary suspension of rail services through the town. £2 million worth of changes to make Watford Junction Station traffic free have made the area unsafe, according to taxi drivers. The taxi rank has moved and there's a new short-stay car park and drop-off area, but drivers say the redevelopment has resulted in gridlock traffic at peak times. And there'll be more on this story in the next hour with Iain Lee. In sport, the Metropolitan Police and race organisers will review their security plans for Sunday's London Marathon after yesterday's bombing in Boston. The London Marathon Chief Executive Nick Bittell has said he's confident the race will still go ahead. The weather, early rain should clear to give us a largely dry day with sunny spells and a top temperature of 16 degrees Celsius. That's 61 degrees Fahrenheit. There's more news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties. BBC Three Counties Radio. First for news.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. It's just gone 7 o'clock on Tuesday. Lots coming up in the show, as always. Be good to get your opinion on this and anything else that you think we should be talking about. Some of the things coming up between now and 8 o'clock include at least 3 people have been killed and more than 100 injured at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. We'll bring you all the latest developments. There's been parking chaos and gridlock traffic at peak times at Watford Junction Station since improvements were made there. Well, that's according to passengers and taxi drivers. Would love to get your report if you've been there recently. What is it like? And a Bedfordshire man has been battling with the council a year after they cut his hedge back. He'll be joining me in the studio to explain why he's so unhappy. If you want to have a look at the picture of the hedge, at BBC3CR on Twitter. You can go to facebook.com/BBC3CR, or the best way to get in touch is to give me a call, of course. 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
2 bomb explosions near the finishing line of the Boston Marathon in Massachusetts have killed at least 3 people and more than 100 have been wounded. The devices went off seconds apart as runners were ending the race. It's a pretty disturbing piece of audio there. Runners from all over the world were taking part in the marathon, watched by large crowds. Gareth Knight from the Isle of Wight had just completed the race.
There was one guy there who'd finished between me and the bomb going off. He'd had relatives of his down in the area, but opposite, so they hadn't been injured, but they'd seen people being carried off to the medical tent, and they'd seen people with their legs blown off.
TV footage, excuse me, I apologise. TV footage showed a scene of chaos as emergency workers broke down fences to try and reach the injured. The street was spattered with blood and strewn with debris. Joe Dunn owns a pub in Boston.
Just heard a big bang first, and then 5 seconds later, I looked down the street, another big bang, and then a big puff of smoke about 200 yards from where we were standing. With that, just everybody started running towards us, and people were crying, and just bedlam broke out.
The police force in Boston say its officers are working around the clock and all rest days have been cancelled. Security has been stepped up in a number of cities across the US, including New York and Washington. The FBI are calling it a potential terrorist investigation. Taylor Dobbs lives close to the finish line.
A few people were crying. A lot of people were very concerned or confused. And there were hundreds, if not thousands, of runners about a block further away from me that were unable to finish because they had closed the scene down.
President Obama has pledged to offer whatever assistance is necessary to find those who carried out the attacks. In a television address, he said his thoughts and prayers are with the people of Boston.
Boston is a tough and resilient town. So are its people. I'm supremely confident that Bostonians will pull together, take care of each other, and move forward as one proud city. And as they do, the American people will be with them every single step of the way.
Well, the London Marathon is due to be run on Sunday. The chief executive of the event, Nick Patel, says there is absolutely no chance at all it will be cancelled, but security arrangements will now be reviewed. Well, a marathon runner we spoke to a few times on this show is Matt Loddy. He's from Kings Langley. He's running the London Marathon on Sunday. Morning, Matt.
Good morning.
Matt, now, we know you've been running several marathons. When you saw this last night, how did that make you feel?
Well, I just honestly couldn't believe it. I couldn't understand why anyone would want to do that to that sort of event, and just absolute shock.
It is incredible, isn't it? Because with something like a marathon, it is generally made up of people running marathons to raise money for charities or for people they've lost or to honour relatives who are ill. It does seem an incredible target to attack, doesn't it?
It does. I can't understand. We were talking about it last night here, and I just can't understand any motive. I mean, obviously, no one knows yet, so we don't know who's behind it. But it just didn't seem doing it to that from people from all over the world. There's no set type of person there. It just seems extremely random.
I tell you what, this was pointed out to me on Twitter, and I watched the footage. It was quite incredible that it's one of the few times where bombs have gone off and you've seen people running towards the bomb. Instead of turning and running away, so many people were running towards where the bombs had gone off to help and pull people out and do whatever they could.
Yeah, it's a community event. It's a marathon bringing people together. It's not any sort of event that I can understand why someone would do it, but it's absolutely tragic. And again, thoughts can only go to the families involved.
London Marathon on Sunday. Are you still going to run it?
Oh, of course, definitely. I can't see it being cancelled. We were all talking about it last night. I can't see it. If people like that win, if you cancel things like that.
Are you not concerned in the slightest, though, Matt? I mean, there's probably no connection whatsoever, and I'm sure it will be perfectly safe. But isn't there not a part of you in the back of your mind thinking, oh dear?
Definitely not so much for myself, but for my family and friends and everyone watching, because that's more of a target that's easy to hit. Rather than runners, it's very, you've got more of a chance because you're moving, if you know what I mean. There's people that are standing watching is what worried me instantly.
Do you think it'll put people off going to watch it? I tell you my position. I took my boy last year, I think, to watch the London Marathon. We had a fantastic time. I'm not going to take him this year.
Yeah. I'm sure it will. I'm sure it's had an effect on me. I certainly intend to run it. But it is, my family going up there, and I'm now concerned about what to do, where they can go, whether they should all go, and really, it makes everyone concerned.
How does it work? Will you have any communication with the London Marathon before this? Will they be? Do they contact you with emails or anything to suggest they might have extra security?
We had an email last night that said exactly that. They were going to review it. They didn't say anything they're going to do or anything. They said that as far as it is at the moment, it's all going ahead. They're going to review security and keep everyone in touch. So I just heard the news this morning that it's definitely going ahead.
So what time did you get an email from the London Marathon organisers?
I think it was about 11 o'clock last night. I was just going to bed, so it would have been about that time.
And what exactly does it say?
It just said that. It said just that obviously in light of what's happened in the Boston Marathon, we are reviewing the situation. As far as we're concerned at the moment, it's going ahead, and we will keep everyone fully informed.
Do you think they were right to react that quickly? It's a very prompt response, isn't it?
I think so. I think everyone it's such an event, and it's such a terrible event that's happened in Boston, that they've obviously got on it straight away and put plans to again review the situation, and that's what all the authorities are going to have to do. And I think it is right. It's such a massive event with so many people coming together in one place. They've got to, in light of this, they have to review everything.
And Matt, just remind us again, how many marathons have you run in the last few weeks?
I've run 24 marathons in 24 days. Today's my 25th.
Where are you running? Where are you running today?
I'm running from the Teenage Cancer Trust Unit at the University College Hospital in Southampton to Salisbury today.
Oh, you sound so blasé about it now, Matt.
Well, my mind's fully tuned in. My body reacts every now and again, but it's sort of tuned in. I'm managing to do them reasonably quickly. So,
and how are you physically feeling? You okay?
I'm fine. I've got a torn left thigh, which I did on Marathon 13, which is it's not a bad tear. It's middly, and as long as I don't overstretch my stride, it's not too bad. So I'm just managing that.
Well, Matt, listen, can we catch up with you on Monday and see how you're getting on?
Yes, by all means, thank you very much.
Good luck, Matt Loddy. Thank you very much indeed. Marathon runner extraordinaire. He'll be running in the London Marathon on Sunday. Has your opinion changed of the London Marathon? Are you signed up to run? Are you reconsidering that now? Or were you planning to go down and now you've changed your mind a little bit? I think I took my son last year, may have been the year before. I'm sure it was last year. Wonderful day we had. Fantastic. I'm not going to take any of them this year, just in case. Is that me being oversensitive or rightly cautious? 08459 455 555. Has the bomb going off in Boston, or the bombs going off in Boston, caused you to rethink your plans for the weekend?
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is BBC Three Counties Radio.
So it's come out that I hate. It's not even a hatred; it's a fear and a loathing of the butterflies and indeed the moths. I just think they're horrible, horrible creatures. I was in a butterfly house with my wife once a few years ago. Oh, I'm just getting shivers down my spine even thinking about it. And I managed to last about 40 seconds, and I said, "I've got to go." What do you mean? I've got to go. I'll speak to you at the end. Where are you going? I've got to go. I ducked. I put one hand over my head, the other hand over my mouth, and I flew out. My fear is, imagine getting 3 of those bad boys stuck in your hair and one stuck in your mouth. You're not allowed to swat them in butterfly houses. That's frowned upon. Disgusting things. Well, it turns out I'm not the only one who has such a dislike of butterflies and moths. Christina, I thought I was the only one who had the phobia. I'm absolutely petrified of them. Summers are a nightmare, and I'm struggling to write this comment with the picture above. She's posted on Facebook, and there's a picture of a butterfly on Facebook. Jill says, butterflies are just about okay. Oh, I'm really shivering reading this. But moths with their hairy bodies make me come out in a cold sweat. Phil says, oh, Phil, are you sick? Iain, you will have to go out one night with a bunch of moth trappers. This is very interesting. Moth trappers? Why would I have to do that? There are perverts that go out at night time and trap moths. Butterflies, I go out of my way to find them. They are amazing creatures. Phil, you are sick and you're banned from listening to this show. I don't know, seriously. Find Phil and go and take the 3CR knob off of his radio. Hang on a second, that could be a reference to one of our presenters. It's not. No, but he is banned from listening. Phil, you deviant. You go out of your way to find butterflies. Moth trappers. Oh, shame on you. Well, 08459 455 555. What are you with me, brothers and sisters, in our hatred for moths and butterflies? And also, what weird, irrational fears do you have that you tell your friends and family and they go, what? You don't like buttons? 08459 455 555. Right, 7:15, travel news. Here's a brother in butterfly hatred, Adam Glynn.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Ian. The M40 looking generally all right as you head for London, though the slip road onto the M25 maybe just a little bit slow at present, looking at the cameras around there now. M1 is busy southbound, delays from junction 10 at Luton Airport through to 9 for the A5 at Redbourne. And then if you're using the A1M this morning, southbound, that's also slow, mainly between junction 8 at Hitchin and 7 at Stevenage. M25 anti-clockwise, it's all building from the M1 through to Chorleywood, junction 21 to 18. Then again, after a little bit where it's more free-flowing, it gets slow from the M40 to the M4, junction 16 to 15. Trains, meanwhile, we've got no problems or delays. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Adam, thanks very much. Morning, 7:16. It's Tuesday, the 16th of April. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. 2 bomb explosions near the finishing line of the Boston Marathon in Massachusetts have killed at least 3 people. 4 men who discussed bombing the Territorial Army base in Luton will be sentenced at Woolwich Crown Court later. In sport, the Metropolitan Police and race organisers will review their security plans for Sunday's London Marathon after yesterday's bombing in Boston. The weather today for Beds, Herts and Bucks. Early rain should clear to give us a largely dry day with sunny spells and a top temperature of 16 degrees. Coming up before 7:30, there's been parking chaos and gridlock traffic at peak times at Watford Junction Station since improvements were made there. Well, that's according to passengers and taxi drivers. Would love to get your take on it. If you've been there recently, what's it like? 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio. Nick Coffer on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Every weekday between 12 and 3, I'm here with a little bit of celebrity.
I'll always love being a comedian because it's my job, so I'm going to keep doing that.
I was voted Japan's #1 male vocalist of the year, and I beat out Frank Sinatra. How's that?
Expert advice.
It does sound like it's a mechanical pain brought on by altered mechanics in your upper limb.
Your capital's protected because I'm guessing what you don't want to do is take any risks with the capital itself.
And loads of really great music.
Nick Coffer, weekdays from 12 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, this is where I need your eyes and ears, dear listener. You are my reporters this morning. Watford Junction Station. Have you been there recently? Have you been there this morning? Are you going there this morning? 08459 455 555. I need you to tell me what you can see and what it's like there. The reason we're talking about this is because passengers and taxi drivers say £2 million worth of work to pedestrianise the front of Watford Junction train station has resulted in parking chaos and gridlock traffic at peak times. Every day, over 15,000 passengers use the station. There's now a new short-stay car park, passenger drop-off area and an improved bus station is nearing completion. Do you use it? Have you been there this morning or this week or last week? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Either way, 08459 455 555. Shafiq Ahmed is the chairman of the Watford Hackney Carriage Drivers Association.
Before, the cars used to go straight down, turn right onto Woodford Road and go whichever direction they want to. This new rank, we're having two-way traffic going into Watford Junction car park, and there's no access, so cars are coming back on themselves, which is causing problems for taxi drivers and the people who use the car park. Then we have incidents here where people do not know where the drop-off point is. That is causing immense problems because they are pinching our ranking spaces. The actual rank and the whole setup, it's a accident waiting to happen. To be honest, the previous setup was 100 times better than what we are experiencing now.
Well, Dorothy Thornhill is the elected mayor of Watford. Dorothy, it's an accident waiting to happen. How do you react to that?
Well, actually, it was an accident waiting to happen before, and I think Shafiq's made the key point. The problem with the forecourt before was that 4 wheels had priority over 2 feet. Yes, the taxis were slap bang there, pole position. Motorists were coming in off Station Road, and it was very, very unsafe. And I think we all got used to it. It was what we did at Watford Junction Station. We took our life in our hands. We just learned to adapt. The top priority for this scheme was for pedestrians and for safety, and to actually make it a safer, nicer place to exit. It has done on that. There's no doubt about that. I've been down there myself and spoken to people. But the problem is, Shafiq's absolutely right, we've all got to get used to it, and it's particularly the motorists, because it's the motorists that have had to adapt to what's happening. And it's not perfect at the moment, but it's not finished at the moment. And people going down there this morning might have a little bit more problem, because there was actually a fire last night on in Iveco House, which is the absolute centre of the station.
We're going to be looking at that fire a bit later on.
At that later.
But you dispute Shafiq's claim that the situation there now is an accident waiting to happen.
I think we've just got to get used to it and see how it settles down. The problem now is people don't know where to go. They don't know where the new drop-off point is. The taxis are lined up what used to be a two-way road, and they're occupying a space there. It's all, how he describes it is absolutely right. But I think it's a transition phase. We're in a point where people just don't know. I mean, people have said to me, "Where is the new short stay car park?" If you don't know it's there is a sign. Somebody said to me, "Oh, there is a great big sign," but we've not been used to even looking for that sign. So I'm under no illusions that for those of us in our four wheels, we've got to do some adjusting, and that will affect traffic flows for a while. But for those of us on our feet, it should actually be a more pleasant experience.
We've heard reports of gridlocked traffic at peak times.
I would refute gridlocked. The station is always busy. It's a stunningly busy station, is Watford Station, and it's in a tight corner of the town. So it's as if we suddenly had, utopia was before, and now it's terrible. Actually, at peak times, it's very busy, but I don't doubt that the traffic people are going to have to come and have a look once it's settled down and people have got used to it, and there may be tweaks that can be made. The taxis, their life will be a little bit easier once all the buses are off the roads. At the moment, they're laying off in the roads, but once the forecourt's completed, the buses will be off the roads, because, again, the priority on that forecourt is to more bus space.
Do we have a date when the whole project will be finished?
Yeah, 7th of May, I think they're talking about.
Okay, so
and believe me, more than anybody, I'm keeping my eye on this one. The good news is it's not public money that was spent on this. It's London Midland and money from developers. But clearly, it has to be right. It will be safer and nicer. Cyclists, much more facilities, hundreds of bikes down there every day, much safer routes for them coming along, and they've told me so. But yep, it is for motorists and taxis. We've got some serious adjusting to do, and if it's still not right afterwards, the traffic guys will have to come out and see what they can do to make it flow better.
Dorothy Thornhill, elected Mayor of Watford, thank you very much indeed. Well, as Dorothy mentioned there was a fire at a nearby office block last night. Iain Markwell is from Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue. Good morning, Iain.
Good morning.
Where exactly was this and what happened?
The fire was in one of the office blocks down in Clarendon Road last night, you're quite right. About 7:30 we received the first call to the fire, and as crews arrived there was a huge amount of smoke emitting from the roof of the building. Crews were then sent in to try and ascertain where the fire was inside the building, and it took quite a while to try and locate the seat of the fire, but the fire actually had spread through all 4 floors of the building and out onto the plant room on the roof. So it was a fairly tricky one to deal with last night.
Do we know what caused it?
It's been early. We will have fire investigation teams down there first thing this morning so they can see what they're doing in the daylight. But it certainly would have, in the first appearance, it would appear to be involved with the electrics of the building. So we're thinking probably accidental and probably to do with the electrical intake system.
And the train station was evacuated, is that correct?
I don't believe the train station was evacuated. I think what was made as a decision last night between police and representatives from the railway authority there was to actually stop trains from stopping and letting passengers alight at Watford Junction last night. They just continued straight through and took passengers elsewhere. But we fairly rapidly made a decision to cancel that and then allow people to get off at Watford again.
Ian, thanks very much indeed. Ian Markwell from Hertfordshire Fire and Rescue. Well, our reporter Justin Dealey has spent the morning there. Justin, what's the scene like this morning?
Well, the scene, Ian, is this morning arriving here in terms of the building. Doesn't look to be any damage. Certainly driving down here, seeing it for the first time. There's still a fire engine outside. There's still a cordon as well, so you can't go anywhere near that building. Certainly people won't be going to work today if they work there. With me now live is Barry De Silva. Barry, you work opposite this building which was on fire last night. You work in Meridian House. I mean, just how bad was it? You, of course, you were an eyewitness here.
Yes, it was pretty horrendous. The smoke started coming up pretty quickly. Thick black smoke. It got so bad on the second floor of Meridian House that I couldn't even see Watford Junction Station. It was that thick.
I mean, are you surprised that building is still standing, bearing in mind what you saw last night?
Yeah, I'm pretty shocked. I'm surprised that more people weren't hurt or even killed fatally. I think they got out pretty quickly by the sounds of it.
So a pretty scary experience then.
Indeed, yeah.
And what about your directors? Because you got away last night from work.
Yes.
What about them? Apparently they were left here and they couldn't leave the building, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Directors Matt Ellis and James Ockleford, they were outside the front. They unfortunately couldn't get out because the police had cordoned off the whole road and the fire brigade had cordoned off the other end of the road. So, yeah, they had to sit tight for a while.
Yeah, well, thank goodness this morning that the fire engines are still here. It's under control and everyone's safe. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
There you go. That's Barry De Silva joining us live on Three Counties. Barry's about to email me a video, Ian. He showed me the video on his phone of what he saw last night. Quite incredible scenes. And also, we've got some pictures for the BBC Three Counties Radio Facebook page as well. They should be up there, hopefully, in the next 15 minutes or so.
Justin, thank you very much indeed. Lots of heavy stuff this morning that we're talking about with all the things going on all over the world. I'm trying to add a little touch of lightness where I can. I hope it's not too appropriate. I have a huge fear, Justin. Are you still there? Oh, he's off. He's off. Look at him. He's off. How's me having a chat? He's got a new mate, Mr. De Silva. Oh, yeah, sorry, Lee. I'm not bothering with you anymore. Can you believe that? How rude. And yet, do you know what? He'll still invoice us for a full day's work. He'll still invoice us. I was going to mention to Justin... my fear of butterflies and moths. It's a fear, it's a hatred, it's a loathing. They're just so horrible. And everyone goes, oh, butterflies, aren't they beautiful? No, they're not beautiful. Have you seen them up close? They are freaky. I don't really like any creepy crawlies. There was a millipede in our kitchen the other day, and the boys were like, oh, yeah, millipede! And I was trying to get it out of the house as quickly as possible, but I didn't want to look afraid, because I didn't want my fear to transfer to them. So I was like, yeah, it's a millipede. I'm just going to pick this little fella up. And it touched my hand. It was horrible. 08459 455 555. What things do you have an irrational fear or hatred of? Clowns are the obvious one. No one does anyone like clowns? No one finds... Someone posted on Twitter the day that clowns and moths start breeding, we're all in very serious trouble. Who on earth thinks that clowns are even vaguely funny? They're nothing less than terrifying. What a hideous concept. 08459 455 555. I want to hear your things that you have an irrational fear of, and your friends are like, what? Sorry? You don't like zips? 08459 455 555. Travel news now. Here's Adam Glynn.
Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
We start at the Black Cat roundabout. Usual hotspot. It's already looking quite busy. Slow along the A1 through there, and busy on the A421 toward the roundabout as well. The High Street, that's the A5 in Dunstable. Looking slow, particularly around the A505 junction, mainly on the southbound side. The A1M as you head for London is busy between Hitchin and Stevenage, junction 8 and 7. On the M1 southbound, you'll find that slow from Luton Airport through to the A5 at Redbourne. And now we've got patches of traffic slowing right down on the M25. First off, from the M1 at junction 21 to junction 19 at Watford, and then the section which is looking much busier, junction 17 at Maple Cross to 16 at the M40. And if your route into London this morning is the A1 through Boreham Wood, expect a queue between the Holiday Inn junction and Mill Hill Circus. It's looking rather slow on the CCTV cameras around there. Trains, meanwhile, though, a good service. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thanks, Adam. Coming up to 7:30, time now for the news and sport. Here's Catherine Boyle.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. The headlines. 2 bomb explosions near the finishing line of the Boston Marathon in Massachusetts have killed at least 3 people. 4 men who discussed bombing the Territorial Army base in Luton will be sentenced at Woolwich Crown Court later. And Hertfordshire police are investigating a large fire at an office block in central Watford last night. It led to the temporary evacuation of Watford Junction Station.
Beds, Herts and Bucks Sport.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The Metropolitan Police and race organisers will review their security plans for Sunday's London Marathon after yesterday's bombing in Boston. The London Marathon's chief executive, Nick Bittell, however, is confident his race will still go ahead.
At this stage, we fully expect the London Marathon to go ahead on the 21st of April as planned. We'll be keeping all of our runners in touch. We'll be in contact with them by email, by use of social media and by statements on our website. But at this stage, no, plans are that we fully expect it to go ahead.
In football, Watford manager Gianfranco Zola may have to change his team's formation for tonight's championship match at Millwall. The Hornets have defensive problems with Marco Cassetti suspended and 4 players injured. Zola says he's considering changing his system of using 3 centre-halves.
We'll see, something that I might do. I will consider, I will think about it. I'm already considering it, but I haven't made my mind up yet. We have a few little problems over there, but we come out with solutions previously and we can do the same.
MK Dons are at Colchester tonight in League One, knowing they must win to stand any chance of reaching the playoffs. The Dons manager Carl Robinson has a fully fit squad to choose from, with the exception of goalkeeper Dave Martin. In the conference, Luton Town are at home to Newport, with Jonathan Smith expected to play again in defence. In League 2, Wycombe Wanderers host Northampton, and the Chairboys manager Gareth Ainsworth is set to make changes to his team, which beat Aldershot at the weekend. Rugby finally, and Worcester centre Josh Matavesi will appear at a disciplinary hearing today after being cited following a challenge on Neil de Kock during Sunday's defeat at Saracens in the Aviva Premiership. And that's your latest news and sport. More from me at 8 o'clock.
Catherine Boyle.
Yes.
So there are 3 moths in your hair and 1 in your mouth.
Oh, stop it.
And 1 tickling your ear. And then you get them off, and then when you get home and you undress and you take off your underwear, there is a butterfly. How did it get there? No. Am I alone? Sorry, I went a bit farther.
You're giving this a bit too much thought. That's quite an elaborate scenario.
It could happen, though. This is the thing. It could happen.
What will I have been doing to enable that to happen?
Maybe. Okay, I've got it. Maybe a caterpillar got into your pants and it turned into a cocoon.
I haven't changed it since the chrysalis began.
Yes, and then it turned into... Well, listen, I'm trying to paint a worst-case scenario,
right,
okay?
Yeah, it's chilling.
Would you join... Listen, I suggest today, you and I, we have a few beers and we go out and we just wipe all of the moths and butterflies off of this planet. Are you with me?
Well, then the birds would die.
I'm not that keen on birds either.
Oh, here we go.
Across Beds, Herts and Bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
08459 455 555. Bedfordshire man Terry Sullivan's going to be joining me in the studio in a few seconds. The council cut his hedge back more than a year ago. He's not happy about it, and he's been battling with them ever since. And David Cameron wants you to be able to build a larger extension to your home without needing planning permission. But he's facing a rebellion by some Conservative MPs over the proposals, including St Albans MP Anne Main. We'll have a look at what the plans can mean for you.
Call 08459 455 555.
08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Now, a row over an overgrown hedge outside a Bedfordshire house remains unresolved nearly a year after it was cut back to enable a pavement to be resurfaced. Terry Sullivan from Clifton says the pruning was excessive and the hedge is dying. Central Bedfordshire Council say its assessors are looking at Mr Sullivan's claim and apologise for the length of time it's taking. If you want to go and have a look at the picture of Terry's hedge, go to facebook.com/BBC3CR. I'm keen to get your views on this morning. As you look at the picture and as you listen to what Terry says, would you have carried on fighting for a year or more, or would you kind of just shrug your shoulders and give it up? Well, Terry's in the studio now. Morning, Terry.
Morning, Ian.
Terry, when did this begin? What happened?
It started last March, so March 2012. Suddenly I had this gentleman knock on my door and present me with this letter saying, did you receive this? And obviously I hadn't received it, and obviously a lot of people hadn't received it, because why would you come around with a letter? And he said, you know, we need to cut your hedge, because of its overhanging the path. I said, well, normally I have a gentleman who cuts it for me, but he has about a month's sort of lead time, and I was going away about a week later, so there was no chance of me doing anything. And then about 2 or 3 days later, they brought a guy who is allegedly a hedge expert to have a look at it, and agreed that really it shouldn't be cut that time of year, and I went away. I got back on the 11th when all the work should have been completed, and they'd done about 2 foot down the road, nowhere near me. I was watching the guys who were doing it. They were doing about 2 foot a day, and it was crazy.
2 foot a day?
2 foot a day. And
how long does it take to trim a hedge?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they hadn't done anything to do with the hedge.
Right.
So when I got back, there was suddenly another letter, a recorded delivery letter, which I had to go and collect. Bearing in mind I'd been over to Panama and Colombia and a few other places. So I went and collected it, and it was another letter from Amy, who are the council's contractors, asking my permission to cut the hedge, which I'd already given them.
Yep.
But with the proviso that if it died, it was their responsibility.
Did you say that to them?
I did.
Did you have that in writing?
I don't have it in writing.
Right.
I had a gentleman called Jason Huckett, who works for Amy. I've spoken to him since. So they did cut it, and I came one day in May. It was the 8th of May last year.
Yeah.
It was absolutely chucking down with rain. The guy didn't knock at the door or anything, just cut the hedge. And I went out and took some pictures, which I had. And I couldn't believe what they'd done. I mean, I normally have it trimmed. They seem to be using a lot of this sort of Highways Act as an excuse to cut it. But I don't mind them cutting it, but there's a difference between cutting it and slaughtering it.
So I'm looking at the picture now, and they've certainly hacked it back a bit. It's green on the top, but where they've cut it, it looks brown and dead to me, from what I can see from that picture.
Bearing in mind, that's a year on.
Right, OK. Oh.
And it's starting to die on the other side. Your guy took a picture yesterday of the other side.
Yeah.
So back in October, I sent in an insurance claim into them. They then forwarded it on to their legal people, which is a company in Wales. They then said, we need 13 weeks to look into it. Well, that seems a bit excessive to me. Then in February, I received a letter from them basically saying somebody had been out to have a look at it. It was this contractor who's no hedge expert. Well, I don't think you really need to be a hedge expert to look at that.
Yes.
And they said, basically, it's not dead. And that's the end of the story. And interestingly, now that this councillor's now saying it's an ongoing open inquiry.
So they're saying it's going to grow back?
Well, I mean...
Is that what they're saying? When they say it's not dead, they're meaning it's going to grow back?
They're saying it's a fast-growing plant that requires regular trimming to keep it in shape. It is tolerant to pruning at any time of the year, although the prune will often initially expose a certain amount of old wood. Recent inspection of the hedge has shown a certain amount of new growth.
OK. What is it you want done, Terry?
Well, basically, I want... either to replace the hedge, because, I mean, it looks a Horlicks, doesn't it? It looks a right mess.
Yes.
It's a lovely little sun trap in the garden. It's beautiful, and they're just basically washing their hands of it again.
Right.
It's interesting. I've never heard of this councillor until fairly recently. He's never contacted me. Central Beds councillor. Would
you settle for a fence if they came?
I wouldn't mind. Yeah,
we'll
anything. I mean, but they've just basically they've not even contacted me since February. I got this letter from this lady in Wales who is a company called Dolmans or B4 Legal, which is their...
Be careful with the names. Let's have no more names, just because these people aren't here to defend themselves. The local authority says it's still assessing the situation.
Well, that's not what it says in the letter.
Right, OK.
It's interesting, this guy... I mean, they've assessed it. How long do they need? I mean, the last letter I had was on the 6th of February. We're now, middle of April.
So what have you claimed for?
I've claimed for basically either replacing the fence or replacing the hedge. Either way, they're both the same sort of price. I had a gentleman round who's a company who actually does mature conifers, mature landai, which is, they're very hard to find actually. I could only find one company locally that did it, and they came round and he actually laughed. He actually said, "Who murdered that hedge?"
Yeah.
Well, there was a few other words in there as well. We won't be using those.
How much will it cost?
I think it's about £3,500.
Wow.
It's quite a bit of money because they have to dig them all out, turn over the ground, then replace them. There's some
Facebook comments I'm going to read in a second, but there might be some people who are saying, well, hang on a second, if you had have maintained this hedge properly over time, it wouldn't have overgrown.
It has been maintained. It's cut once or twice a year. Right. I mean, that hedge has been in there all the years I've been in the house, and I believe it was put in initially when the houses were built back in 1972. It's certainly, I've been in the house 25 years and I have it done regularly by a gentleman.
But the council was saying that it blocked access to a sluice drainage thing. Is
rubbish.
That not,
no, rubbish. Absolute rubbish. The thing is, they wasted 2 months between the initial contact in March and then actually cutting it in May.
Yep.
And as they say, it is quite a fast-growing thing. That's why it's unbelievable. In a year, it hasn't grown at all. you know, and no, it's not. There's a water hydrant there, but I mean, it's funny. It's not been an issue before, but they're using that as an excuse for how much they've cut it. I mean, I'm not just. Could have done with a little trim, and it was due for a little trim, perhaps sort of March, perhaps June time.
Let me read you the statement from Central Beds Council. They say it has a duty to both maintain the public highway and keep it clear and accessible, which is why it contacted Mr. Sullivan about pruning your hedge. It used to encroach on the footway, and it hid the water sluice valve marker, which marks the location of the water main in case of emergencies. When we're planning out, it's quite a long statement, bear with me. When we're planning our works, we'll always give the opportunity for landowners to maintain their trees. But if for any reason this is not carried out, we reserve the right to undertake the work ourselves. We sent a claim form to Mr. Sullivan, who took the opportunity to submit a claim at the end of last year. Our assessors are looking at this on an individual considered basis. We apologise for the length of time it's taking to consider this claim, but Mr. Sullivan will be informed of the outcome as soon as these inquiries are complete.
No, that's not what it says on this letter.
Let's have a look.
There it is.
We cannot find that our client has acted negligently, and as such we're unfortunately unable to put forward any offers in settlement of this matter. This is a letter sent to you. We appreciate this is not the decision you would have hoped for, but we feel that it is a correct one based on legal liability principle. OK. Can I read you some of the comments on Facebook?
Please do, yeah.
Joe says, it's a hedge. It'll grow. Seriously, there are more important things to worry about in life. Neil says it's a conifer, not dying, although the prune bit won't grow back. Perhaps if Terry had dealt with it or not allowed it to overhang, there wouldn't be any problem.
Well, I couldn't deal with it because I was going away overseas.
Let me play devil's advocate.
Yep.
That's not the council's responsibility. That's not their fault, though, is it?
No,
if you're going away for
but
5-6 weeks.
I gave them permission to cut it. I mean, they had to ask me about 3 times, but the proviso was if it died, they would do something about it, and they've just basically washed their hands of it now.
It's a shame you haven't got that in writing.
I know, it's very shame.
So I know some of the...
I know.
Gary says it'll never be the same again, as the cut green won't come back on a conifer that's been cut that hard. However, he should have kept it reasonably trimmed. He'd be better off removing it now, as it's an eyesore. Put your headphones on, Terry. We've got a caller. We've got Colin from Dunstable. Morning, Colin.
Morning.
Colin, you used to be a landscape gardener, is that correct?
It is, yeah.
Have you seen the photo of this conifer?
No, I haven't, because I haven't turned my computer on yet.
Oh, you've not turned your computer on? It's 7:42 in the morning, for goodness sakes.
Well, I've turned it on, but...
it needs to warm up a little bit.
It's still booting up.
The valves are just kicking in. Colin...
Well, the rubber band.
OK, right. The hamster hasn't started spinning the wheel. Now, Colin, I can describe this. The top is green, but there's not much green. The rest of it's kind of brown and grey. Is it going to grow back?
Right. Is it? Can I ask? Sorry, I don't know.
It's Terry. You can speak to Terry, of course.
Terry, is it Leylandii?
It is Leylandii, yes.
Oh, dear.
That's not sound too good.
Basically, if you cut into past the green, it will never grow back again.
Oh, dear.
That was my concern.
So how should they have done it, Colin? Because it looks like it's been thoroughly hacked.
How far over the
pavement
was it growing?
About 2 inches. Well, about an inch when they started complaining, and then by the time they left it 2 months, it's probably about 2 inches at the maximum. But they only wanted to do the path at the bottom. They've cut it about 7 foot high. They only needed to resurface the path. As it turned out, it was...
I mean, to me, that says they've gone at it like a bull in a china shop.
Unbelievable. I mean...
And destroyed it.
Yeah, I agree.
Colin, when you get the chance, go and have a look at the Facebook page.
I'm loading a browser up now.
A browser? OK. Well, go and have a look and leave your comments on there, and we'll read them out a little bit later on in the show. I do want to hear from you this morning, dear listener. If you were Terry, would you continue to pursue the claim, or would you just kind of admit defeat? 08459 455 555. Terry, listen, thank you very much for coming in. It's nice to see you. I appreciate you sharing this with us, and we'll get some feedback from the listeners a little bit later on. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. Right, 7:44. Here's the travel news now with Adam Glynn.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Taking a look at the A10 at the minute, it's looking quite slow as you go through Cheshunt down toward the M25, and then slow beyond the M25 as you go through Enfield as well. A few spots are now starting to look quite slow on the speed sensors, so we've got the queues building up at the Black Cat roundabout on the A1. The A5 is looking slow through Dunstable. It's also looking pretty busy as you get down toward the M1 around Junction 9. M1's already looking slow from Junction 10 at Luton Airport through to 9 for the A5. M25, we've got a few patches of traffic. It's all slow moving. First off anti-clockwise M1 through to 19 at Watford, and then from Maple Cross to the M40 Junction 17 to 16, and that's tailing back maybe a little bit toward Junction 18 now as well. And if the A1 is your route of choice in toward London, Boreham Wood's looking slow. The Holiday Inn Junction through to Mill Hill Circus. Trains, meanwhile, still a good service. No problems or delays on the departure boards. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Adam. 7:45, it's Tuesday, the 16th of April. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. 2 bomb explosions near the finishing line of the Boston Marathon in Massachusetts have killed at least 3 people. 4 Luton men who discussed bombing the town's Territorial Army barracks will be sentenced at Woolwich Crown Court later. In sport, the chief executive of the London Marathon, Nick Bittell, says he's confident his race will go ahead despite yesterday's bombings in Boston. Coming up, David Cameron wants you to be able to build a larger extension to your home without needing planning permission, but he's facing a rebellion by some Conservative MPs over the proposal. Before 8, we'll look at what the plans could mean for you. I'd love to hear from you on this. Do you think the plans to loosen planning laws are a good idea? Or do you think it's going to be an absolute nightmare? 08459 455 555. Here's the weather now with Elizabeth Rizzini.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Hello, a very good morning to you. It's a bit of a cloudy start to the day, but it is a mild one. We've got some outbreaks of possible light rain and drizzle, nothing heavy at all through the morning. A southwesterly breeze that is certainly noticeable for many areas, but it will brighten up into the afternoon. The breeze will ease down too, so a generally improving picture with temperatures up to 14 or 15 degrees Celsius in Luton, in Milton Keynes and in High Wycombe as well. That's 59 in Fahrenheit, so it's not a bad looking day. And then for this evening and overnight, we're going to do the whole thing all over again. Another very weak weather front, so just pushing in from the west at times. So we're going to see the cloud thicken, the breeze pick up once more, and a few outbreaks of drizzle into tomorrow morning. Lows of 8 or 9 degrees Celsius. That will soon clear, and again we're going to see some brightness and some sunshine into the afternoon. This is a warm front, so tomorrow afternoon could feel very mild again, with temperatures up to 17 or 18 degrees Celsius in many of our towns. That's 64 in Fahrenheit. It is going to feel slightly cooler though by Thursday and Friday. Some blustery showers around at times. The weekend is looking dry, fine and settled. Some decent spells of sunshine and temperatures around average for the time of year, 12 or 13 degrees. That's the forecast.
Tonight, the countdown to the end of the season continues with Three Counties Sports. Watford are away to Millwall, with the Hornets still aiming for that top 2 place.
What a strike that is! And how will that affect the promotion race?
MK Dons are at Colchester, and the Dons still have playoff hopes.
Taken down low! 2-0!
Luton entertain Newport, hoping to avenge their heavy defeat in the away fixture.
And Newport County lead by 5 goals to 2.
Plus updates on Wycombe's match against Northampton. Three Counties Sport, tonight from 7 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. 08459 455 555 is the phone number if you want to take part in any of the things we're talking about. We're talking about hedges, we're talking about phobias and butterflies, and we're also talking about extensions, because David Cameron wants you to be able to build a larger extension to your home without needing planning permission. But he's facing a rebellion by some Conservative MPs over the proposals, including St Albans MP Anne Main. Many Tory backbenchers fear the changes will lead to unsightly developments and an increase in disputes between neighbours. While the Treasury hopes the policy will give builders more work and boost the economy. Mike Galloway is a former Milton Keynes councillor and was Cabinet Member for Planning. Morning, Mike.
Good morning, Ian.
Does this policy have any benefits in that it cuts the red tape and makes it easier for people to extend their homes?
It's a fallacy. I mean, there's certainly red tape around planning, And if you're looking at bigger applications, there's a lot of work involved in it. But for something like an extension, you should already clearly be using a architect, a surveyor, and certainly a builder. The hassle, the red tape of putting a planning application in is very insignificant. What I've certainly found in the past is people are surprised when something gets built next to them and they don't know anything about it. With this proposal, if it goes through, then not only won't they know about it, they won't have been able to do anything about it either.
And you're right, the hassle, if you are using a reputable builder and architect, they'll do a lot of the work for you, won't they, in terms of the application and getting in touch with the council?
Yeah, it's not that expensive. It's, as part of the scheme, if you're spending £20,000 on an extension, to spend sort of perhaps £400 or £500, including drawing up plans, but hopefully you'd actually have the plans anyway. The other bit is that you almost certainly need building regulations approval, and whilst that is different, a lot of the work in terms of plans, etc., is repeated. So in terms of giving work to builders, there was research done by industry bodies saying, now this is insignificant.
Why? Listen, if anybody can phone in and support this and thinks this is a cracking idea, 08459 455 555. I've not heard anyone, Mike, say that actually, this is a brilliant idea. This will revitalise the economy. This will revitalise the building industry, and it's just what we need. Does anyone think this is a good idea? Mike?
Yep, I suspect there will be some people, particularly people who have wanted to build something and don't want any hassle, possibly going to do it themselves, do it on the cheap, and that leads to the one of the comments that the MP had made about unsightly development. Planning shouldn't be a hassle, and councils across the country ought to work harder at being user-friendly, as they say. And certainly Milton Keynes Council over recent years has certainly improved massively. So, I think by going through the system, it doesn't mean the extension can't be built. It doesn't impose a massive delay. It means there is the opportunity for neighbours to have their say.
Mike, stay there. Jane in Aylesbury is calling. Good morning, Jane.
Morning, Ian.
Jane, what's your take on this?
I think he's an idiot, to be
Sorry?
quite frank.
Who's an idiot?
Cameron.
Oh, David Cameron. I thought you were being rude about my guest. That's
No,
a relief.
no,
Sorry.
no,
Okay,
no.
Why is David Cameron an idiot?
Well, if you think about it, some people have got all the money in the world, and you get something like a Grade 2 listed building, and you need permission to have that done. If they don't have it, then it's going to be in the wrong state of affairs.
Yes. Well, Jane, stay there. Mike, that's interesting. Will it affect listed buildings at all, or will they still need special permission?
I would be unsure. I suspect they probably would, but it depends exactly what. The problem is that currently, very small things don't need permission, but once it gets over a certain size, then it does. And that just puts on a level of check, because some people, out of innocence, may well want to, make a massive change to what they've already got. And the first the neighbours know, of course, is when it starts happening.
Jane, do you not think, though, that have you ever had any extension work done, Jane?
No, I've never been able to afford it.
It is a little bit tricky. It's not the toughest thing in the world, but you do have to jump through a couple of hoops. Wouldn't it be easier and nicer if you could just build a little bit more on the back of your house? Wouldn't that make life easier?
Yeah, but if you get a person who really dislikes their neighbour, they'll block out all the sun. So they'll just say, let's go mad and go 4 foot this way and 10 foot that way and whatever.
Well, I think it's 26 foot they can go one way.
Well, yeah.
Do you think people would really be that malicious, Jane? They build a big extension just to annoy the person next at number 62?
I would think so.
Wow. Do you get on with your neighbours, Jane?
Big question mark on that one.
Jane, we will speak again about that. Jane in Aylesbury, the last voice you heard there. And before that, Mike Galloway, former Milton Keynes councillor, and he was Cabinet Member for Planning. What do you think? If you've had an extension done, did you find it particularly tricky to do? The red tape and the hoops that you had to pass through? Or do you think this is all a load of old nonsense? This is not going to help anybody, and it is just going to create, as Jane says, neighbour wars. 08459 455 555 is the phone number. You'd have to get on with your neighbours pretty badly for them to build a 26-foot extension just to narc you off, wouldn't you? I'm intrigued. I wanted to ask Jane more. I wanted to find out exactly what her relationship was with her neighbours. 08459 455 555.
Text 81333. Start your message with 3CR. Text charged at the standard network rate.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Oh, Stephen the Meltman has just texted something in that's made me very uncomfortable. Stephen the Meltman has texted 81333. Starting his text 3CR. We're talking about fears. The thing I hate most is cotton wool. I hate it, hate it, hate it. Oh, man, so do I. And here's another completely irrational fear, and I really is setting my teeth on edge. I can't pull cotton wool apart, OK? Can't do it. The other thing that I hate is the thought of, I've got to say it, this is so uncomfortable. I've had a hypnotherapist get in touch saying, I can cure phobias. You couldn't cure this. The fear, and I don't think I've ever done it, the fear of biting down on the brushes of a toothbrush. Imagine... See, my teeth are on edge now. Imagine you got the toothbrush, and instead of brushing your teeth with it, you bite down on the bristles. Producer Laura is are you uncomfortable with that? Does that make you uncomfortable? What's the one that makes you uncomfortable?
No, I thought...
Oh, you're that one.
I thought you were going to say, where you get impressions done at the dentist and
yeah.
you bite into that plaster stuff.
Yeah.
I can't stand the way that they then pull it away.
Oh, I like that.
And then they leave stuff in your mouth. I thought that's what you were going to say your fear was, because I really don't like that.
I don't mind that. I find that very satisfying.
Do you?
But you've reminded me of another thing. When you go to the dentist, those cotton wool tubes that they put in your mouth. Oh, man, this is horrible. This is horrible. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number if you want to give us a call on this. And listen, no phobia or fear is too small. None will be laughed at this morning. Let's be honest, we're all a little bit mental, aren't we? The brain is weird. And everybody is odd in their own way. The things we do behind closed doors and drawn curtains, we're all a little bit seedy, aren't we? We've all got stuff that if our next door neighbour knew about it, they go, oh dear, you're a bit weird. So none of your phobias, none of your fears will be considered too small this morning. 08459 455 555. Pulling wool apart, chewing on wool, and chewing on the bristles of a toothbrush. 08459 455 555 is the telephone number. Coming up later on BBC Three Counties Radio, Jonathan Vernon-Smith will be here from 9. And during the consumer hour, which I believe is at 11 o'clock, Jonathan's going to be meeting Lisa, who says her garden has turned into a no-go area for her and her 2-year-old, and they can't go out and play. Why? I want to know more. Do you? Find out more by listening to Jonathan Vernon-Smith from 9 o'clock this morning. Always a cracking listen. He'll pop in about 20 minutes' time to give us a little bit more insight into what's happening on his show. Facebook.com/BBC3CR 08459 455 555. Also, another thing we're mentioning this morning, as well as your phobias, in light of yesterday's bombs in Boston, are you reconsidering your plans to either run in or go and watch the London Marathon? It was kind of in the back of my head I might take the boys down there to have a little look. I'm not going to do it now. And there's probably nothing to be worried about. I don't want to be fear-mongering. I think it's probably fine. It's probably... there'll be... I'm sure it's not someone who's targeting marathons around the world. I'd be very surprised if that was that they want to stop people running 26 and a half miles. I'm sure that's not it. But there's just something about me that feels uneasy. Are you reconsidering your plans to either run in or go and watch the marathon this weekend? We'll discuss that and more after the travel with Adam Glynn.
Beds, Hearts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The A1 southbound, we've got delays approaching the Black Cat roundabout. It's tailing back now to the Eton Token and St Neots junction at the Great North Road. The A1M southbound is slow from Hitchin to Stevenage, and the A1 as you get into London is queuing between the Holiday Inn junction and Mill Hill Circus. The A10 slow through Cheshunt approaching the M25, mainly between the Great Cambridge Road and Winston Churchill Way. The M1 on the southbound side has delays that start at Dunstable junction 11 and continue through to the A5 at junction 9. If the A5 is your route of choice this morning, southbound through Dunstable's looking particularly busy around the A505 Church Street. Busy in Hemel Hempstead now on the A41 eastbound between the A414 and the M25 at junction 20. And if you're joining the M25 queues from the M1 at junction 21 through to 19 at Watford, then 17 at Maple Cross to 16 at the M40. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much, Adam. Are you reconsidering your plans this weekend after the bombing at the Boston Marathon? Are you running in the London Marathon, planning on taking your family down there? Have you changed your mind? 08459 455 555.
Getting beds, hearts and bucks talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Catherine Boyle. The headlines: 3 dead and 100 injured in Boston bombings. Sentencing due for Luton 4. And station improvements blamed for Watford gridlock.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
At least 3 people have been killed and more than 100 injured in 2 explosions at the Boston Marathon. A White House official said the explosions were being treated as an act of terror. President Obama said it wasn't yet known who'd carried out the attacks or why.
People shouldn't jump to conclusions before we have all the facts. But make no mistake, we will get to the bottom of this, and we will find out who did this. We'll find out why they did this. Any responsible individuals, any responsible groups will feel the full weight of justice.
4 men who discussed bombing the Territorial Army barracks in Luton will be sentenced later today. The group was arrested in April last year following covert surveillance by security services. Tony Fisher has been at Woolwich Crown Court.
As well as talking about bombing the TA Centre in Marsh Road, the men also discussed multiple targets, including MI5. The court heard they discussed getting hold of guns, including an AK-47. In September 2011, search warrants were carried out at their homes in Bury Park and Farley Hill, just 2 days before the ringleader, Zahid Iqbal, was about to leave the country on a one-way ticket. The men were arrested in early morning raids in April the following year. All 4 have pleaded guilty to a number of terror offences.
A man's been jailed for 35 years for the near-fatal shooting of his older brother at his home in Watford. 27-year-old Feza Kayak, also from Watford, arranged the shooting of Mohammed Khan as a revenge attack. The victim suffered a stroke, which has left him unable to walk. £2 million worth of changes to make Watford Junction Station traffic-free have made the area unsafe, according to the area's taxi drivers. The taxi rank has moved and there's a new short-stay car park and drop-off area, but drivers say the redevelopment has resulted in gridlock traffic at peak times. Shafiq Ahmed is the chairman of Watford Hackney Carriage Drivers Association.
The actual rank and the whole setup, it's an accident waiting to happen. To be honest, the previous setup was 100 times better than what we are experiencing now.
Meanwhile, motorists travelling through central Watford this morning are being warned of potential disruption as police investigate last night's fire at the junction of Clarendon Road and Woodford Road. Emergency services were called to the office block near Homebase shortly after 7:30. Smoke from the blaze caused the temporary evacuation of Watford Junction Station and the suspension of rail services through the town. In sport, the Metropolitan Police and race organisers will review their security plans for Sunday's London Marathon after yesterday's bombing in Boston. The London Marathon's chief executive, Nick Bittell, says he's confident that the race will still go ahead. The weather: early rain should clear to give us a largely dry day with sunny spells and a top temperature of 16 degrees Celsius. That's 61 Fahrenheit. There's more news and sport online at bbc.co.uk/3 counties. BBC Three Counties Radio, first for heavy breathing.
Don't send me a message that says, you are an odd person. Why am I odd?
Just the different scenarios that you're frightened of. Biting a toothbrush.
Oh, it's unfair, it's unfair. But then go on, tell the listeners the things that you're afraid of.
biting nail files.
You see? Now, there is a chance that a toothbrush might actually be in my mouth, and so I could accidentally chomp on the bristles.
Well, you should have done it and got over it by now.
But why would the nail file be in your
it's
mouth?
Just that whole sandpaper thing. And, you know, if you get a little thread on your jumper and you bite through the wall, or you get a bit of yoghurt on your jumper and you try and sort of... Hang
on a minute. You suck off yoghurt from your jumpers?
Doesn't everybody?
Oh dear, she's been a mum too long. She sucks off yoghurt from her jumpers. She had the cheek to call me a weirdo. Unbelievable. Yes, if a bit of bolognese or something falls on my jeans, I'll pick it up with my finger and have some of that bad boy. I'm not going to waste it. I'm not going to suck yoghurt off from a jumper. Oh dear. Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. Lots on the show between now and JVS at 9, including at least 3 people have been killed and more than 100 injured at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. We'll bring you all the latest developments. There's been parking chaos and gridlock traffic at peak times at Watford Junction Station since improvements were made there. That's according to passengers and taxi drivers. I need you to be my reporters today, dear listener. Have you been to Watford Junction Station recently? What's it like? Busy? Gridlocked? 08459 455 555. And a Bedfordshire man has been battling with the council a year after they cut his hedge back. Have a look at the picture on Twitter. BBC at BBC3CR. It's also on Facebook.com/BBC3CR. Would you continue to fight with the council if you were Terry from Clifton? 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Well, the big news this morning is 2 bomb explosions near the finishing line of the Boston Marathon in Massachusetts have killed at least 3 people and more than 100 have been wounded. The devices went off seconds apart as runners were ending the race. I warn you now, this next clip is a little bit grim. Runners from all over the world were taking part in the marathon, watched by large crowds. Gareth Knight from the Isle of Wight had just completed the race.
There was one guy there who'd finished between me and the bomb going off. He'd had relatives of his down in the area, but opposite, so they hadn't been injured, but they'd seen people being carried off to the medical tent and seen people with their legs blown off.
Well, the police force in Boston say its officers are working round the clock and all rest days have been cancelled. Security has been stepped up in a number of cities across the US, including New York and Washington. The FBI are calling it a potential terrorist investigation. Taylor Dobbs lives close to the finish line.
A few people were crying. A lot of people were very concerned or confused. And there were hundreds, if not thousands, of runners about a block further away from me that were unable to finish because they had closed the scene down.
President Obama has pledged to offer whatever assistance is necessary to find those who carried out the attacks. In a television address, he said his thoughts and prayers are with the people of Boston.
Boston is a tough and resilient town, so are its people. I'm supremely confident that Bostonians will pull together, take care of each other, and move forward as one proud city, and as they do, the American people will be with them every single step of the way.
Well, the London Marathon is due to be run on Sunday. Earlier on, I spoke to Matt Loddy from Kings Langley. He said he will still run the London Marathon at the weekend.
I certainly intend to run it, but my family go up there, and I'm now concerned about what to do, where they can go, whether they should all go, and it makes everyone concerned.
Will you have any communication with the London Marathon before this? Will they be? Do they contact you with emails or anything to suggest they might have extra security?
We had an email last night that said exactly that. They were going to review it. They didn't say anything they're going to do or anything. They said that it's, as far as it is at the moment, it's all going ahead. They're going to review security and keep everyone in touch. So I just heard the news this morning that it's definitely going ahead.
Well, if you're planning to run in the marathon at the weekend or take your family down to cheer the runners on, I'd love to hear from you this morning. Have you changed your mind? Are you going to cancel? Or are you going to take that "they're not going to beat me" attitude? 08459 455 555. Well, Brian Jenkins is a terrorism expert and author of The Long Shadow of 9/11. He joins me now. Brian, what can you tell us about yesterday's attacks?
Well, I mean, everyone knows by now what happened, where it happened, when it happened, who is responsible, and what are the motives. Remain to be discovered, and at this point anything about who done it or why remains pure speculation. We just don't know.
Well, can we speculate for a second? Are there any clues at all? Have there been any tip-offs? Has anybody come out and taken responsibility for this?
Thus far there have been no reports of any claims of responsibility. The authorities have reviewed all of the intelligence prior to the event and have indicated that there were no indications of a threat to the event. But that's not surprising. When something like this occurs, it often occurs without specific warning.
2 bombs have gone off with in terms of time, very close to each other. That does look like a planned. There was a definite plan.
Oh, there's no question about that. I mean, certainly the fact that there were multiple bombs, that they were aimed at the finish line of the Boston Marathon during the race. I mean, that's not coincidental. That indicates a determination to kill or injure as many people as possible. The selection of the Boston Marathon itself, an iconic sporting event, indicates that whoever did it clearly wants to be heard. There is some message behind it, although we don't know precisely what that specific message is.
Is it likely there'll be knock-on effects in terms of heightened security here in Britain?
I think that's logical. I mean, we are already seeing in the United States security ratcheting up nationwide. Major terrorist spectaculars tend to invite imitation. That is not to suggest for one moment that there will be anything like this at the London Marathon, but even putting aside an event, one has to expect the heightened probability of malicious pranksters, of bomb threats, of things being done to rattle people during this time. So, for obvious reasons, everyone takes security up at least a notch.
Why would anyone target an event like this, where it's a celebration of life, of sporting achievement? A lot of people running in memory of people that have passed, or to raise money for various charities. It seems a particularly callous event to attack like this.
That's precisely why it is targeted, because it is the callousness of it that invites attention. I mean, why would anyone blow up horses in a parade? Why would anyone make hostages of school children? Why would people take over a hospital and take hostages? Why would people plan to set off bombs during Christmas holiday shopping? It is those type of events that make people feel that they cannot be safe anywhere at any time. That increases alarm. That gets more attention. That is precisely what terrorism is all about. It's theatre.
Brian, thank you very much indeed. Brian Jenkins, terrorism expert, 08459 455 555. Well, Sarah is in Long Crendon. Good morning, Sarah.
Hello there, Iain.
You heard about this. We're asking this morning if people are changing their plans about either running in or going to see the London Marathon. Were you planning to go down and see the London Marathon?
No, I wasn't at all. I was phoning in more to say that if your gut reaction is to not go, then don't go. I'm a survivor of a 1970s paramilitary attack in Germany. And I can still remember it like it was yesterday, and I was 6 or 7 at the time, and I'm now 45.
If it's not too troubling, can I ask what happened?
Yeah, my father was in the British Army. The paramilitary group was called the Baader-Meinhof Gang.
Of course, yes.
They had a massive problem with both British and American presence in West Germany, as it was at the time. My father was based with American troops. He was one of the attachés. And they bombed the barracks that we were in. I was attending school on the barracks, Mark Twain Elementary School, which was right next to the main building. And one minute the building was there, and the next minute it had just gone. There was the most unbelievable bang, and then there was just total and utter silence for 5 or 6 seconds, and then the emergency sirens clicked in, and the screaming started. And I will never forget it.
And I'm assuming, were people killed?
Yes. A large number of people. I mean, I think it was about 25 people were killed. A number was seriously injured, as in Boston there was amputees and all the rest of it. And the one person that I remember most of all was actually my babysitter. And he was off duty, and he'd gone into the main building of the barracks because he'd just taken delivery of a new car, and he couldn't wait to show his mates his new car. And as he walked into the building, the bomb went off.
Sarah, this happened almost 40 years ago, and I can hear in your voice you're still very upset by it. Do things like the events in Boston yesterday, do they kind of take you back to Germany?
Yes, things like that do. Obviously the London bombings, etc., they do, the Hyde Park bombings. The one thing that takes me back more than anything else is bonfire night, and it's not because of the sound of the fireworks, because fireworks, you can't compare them to the sound of a bomb going off, but it's the smell of the wood burning. Really, that's the most vivid reminder? It's the smell, and as children we were put into lockdown for, I think, 17 hours. They took us below the school into bunkers, and for about 17 hours I didn't know if my dad was alive, and I can remember that as well.
And was your dad okay?
My dad was fine, yes. I mean, he finished up doing 25 years in the British Army.
Sorry, we're kind of running out of time, and I could talk to you all morning because this is fascinating. But how have you managed to cope for the last 40 years? Have you spoken to people? Have you had help?
Well, I mean, obviously all the families that lived on the barracks and at the time, absolutely, but there was help, and there was counselling and group counselling and all the rest of it. And, you know, to be honest, it's that British spirit. You just get on with it.
Wow. Sarah, I really appreciate you sharing that with us this morning. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Sarah in Long Crendon there with, an incredible story of what it's like to be involved, to be at the centre, or certainly within a terrorist attack. 08459 455 555 816. Here's the travel news with Adam Glynn.
Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
On the M1, we've got delays. It's looking slow from Luton Airport at junction 10 through to 9 for the A5 at Redbourne. Now, if you're heading down toward the M25 this morning, it is very slow in a few places, mainly as you go past Watford. So the M1 through to Watford's looking busy, and then, well, it's almost looking like 1Q now on the speed sensors as you continue round toward the M40 from there. So it's all very, very slow moving. A41 from Hemel Hempstead down to the M25's looking busy. Got a bit of a queue on the A1M between Hitchin and Stevenage, and as you head into London on the A10 through Cheshunt and then onwards through Enfield, it's looking busy as well. If you're travelling by train this morning, though, your journey should be a pretty good one because at the minute there are still no problems reported. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you very much. Morning, it's 8:17. It's Tuesday the 16th of April. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. At least 3 people have been killed and more than 100 injured in 2 explosions at the Boston Marathon. 4 men who discussed bombing the Territorial Army base in Luton will be sentenced at Woolwich Crown Court later. In sport, organisers of the London Marathon say the race will go ahead on Sunday, but they'll be reviewing their security plans in reaction to the Boston bombings. The weather today for Beds, Herts and Bucks. Early rain should clear to give us a largely dry day with sunny spells and a top temperature of 16 degrees. Coming up, before 8:30, there's been parking chaos and gridlock traffic at peak times at Watford Junction Station since improvements were made there. That's according to passengers and taxi drivers. Have you been there recently? What's it like? 08459 455 555.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Weeknights from 7. Get together wherever you are.
Good evening, Joe.
Good evening.
Let's talk to Lynn. What's your story?
Mark Forrest brings you the best stories from around the country.
Is there life after the armed forces?
They've got fantastic skill set.
City Street is great.
Fruit, veg. You're telling me the best thing about your local market.
It's inexpensive but quality products that's grown locally.
How has adoption affected your family?
He always says to me, she is my birth mother, but you're my mum.
Mark Forrest, tonight from 7 on BBC Three Counties Radio.
Should certainly be having a little listen to that later on this evening. If I'm not asleep, I go to bed so early these days.
Do you know, I went to bed early last night.
What time's early for you?
I went to bed at 8 o'clock last night.
Did you?
I watched a couple of Frasers, and I don't even remember seeing 9 o'clock. Isn't that outrageous?
Do you know what I've been watching a lot of recently? ITV4 show them all the time. Where everybody knows your name. Where everybody knows your name. Cheers.
Yeah.
And they're like that. I love it. And it stands up. It's very chucklesome.
Yes.
Very chucklesome.
Well, they don't make comedies like that anymore.
They don't. I'm going to go as far as to say that the greatest situation comedy character of all time, Woody from Cheers.
Oh.
Because he doesn't do a lot. But what he does is flipping funny.
Well, of course, he rocked up in Frasier as well.
He pops up in, as you say, rocked up, or as I say, pops up in Frasier occasionally, and he also pops up in Natural Born Killers.
Really?
Yes, he popped up. He kind of made lots of sort of nasty movies afterwards, I think, in an attempt to break away from the mould. But
he was in Friends as well, wasn't he?
I don't know. I've only ever seen one episode of Friends.
He was in Friends. He was, I think, the boyfriend of Jennifer Aniston.
There's a Friends reunion happening.
Is there really?
Are you going?
No.
I've only ever seen one episode of Friends, and I've seen the episode twice.
Oh.
Yeah, not a fan.
No.
Silly.
Well, I was never really a fan either.
Silly. Anyway, moving on.
We've explored all of that.
We've explored all of that. No laughs, but interesting. Not even that, really. Let's be honest. Dull. We'll cut that bit out. What's coming up on your show? It doesn't have to. We can't deliver gold every handover.
No.
And if we do a few duds, that makes the good one seem even better.
Ah, I see.
Yes?
Do you think this one today will go down as one of our worst?
It was a dud.
Ooh.
It was a stinker. I'm not blaming you, but I am looking at you. I'm blaming me.
Thanks very much.
No, I'm blaming me, although you did bring up Frasier, so...
Oh, it's my fault, is it? Sometimes I like keeping up appearances. Richard!
Let's ask producer Laura. Producer Laura, whose fault was it this morning that it was a dud handover, mine or Jonathan's?
Oh, yours.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to get a present when you go on maternity leave. Get rid of her. Can't wait for my new producer to come in.
I'm still here.
Yeah, you're not now though. Look, you're back now. Can't wait for my new producer to come in May.
Bothered.
Oh, I've cut her off.
That's very mean. Yeah. That's very mean.
She's pregnant. She doesn't care. She doesn't care about the show. She's concerned about the baby.
You reckon?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, that's beastly. Coming up on this morning's big phone-in.
Yes.
Look at you turning around to check to make sure she's laughing.
By the way, can I just say?
Yeah.
I saved the handover. Yeah, that's right. I saved the handover.
Well done.
Thanks very much, you see. Jonathan.
Oh, God. Coming up this morning on the big phone-in, I'm asking, are new-build houses worth the money? There's a report from the Royal Institute of British Architects that says the public don't think very much about the quality of new-build housing in the UK. It's urging the government not to give the go-ahead for a new generation of what it calls shoebox homes without enough space and natural light. The coalition, as we know, it was announced in the budget, is hoping to boost the economy by boosting house building. But the RIBA is urging caution on the types of homes that will be built. It says it's found strong public support for bigger and brighter properties and wants the introduction of a minimum set of space standards, which it says could have a profound impact on a family's quality of life. Well, from 9 this morning, I want to hear your views. There is very much this emphasis at the moment, isn't there, that buying new build properties, particularly if you are a young family, that's the best way to go. And the government is saying, do this and we'll give you extra help with your mortgage. Yes. But are they really money well spent brand new houses? Or if you buy a brand new house, and I'll be interested to find out from you because you've just moved into a brand new house.
No, it's not brand new. It's 1970s.
Oh, that's not new.
No, it's not new. But it's new compared to the previous houses I've lived in.
Right,
They've all been about 100 years.
Well, I live in a 70s property as well.
Right, yeah.
And what I like, massive, great big, thick walls.
Oh, yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah.
Yes.
So warm.
It feels solid. There's concrete floors. It feels like a proper purpose-built block. Ugly.
Yeah, we're hideous.
Ugly.
We looked at some new builds, but they were all tiny. Really tiny.
Are they?
Yeah, the ones we looked at were very small.
See, I remember my parents, when we first moved to Harpenden, my parents bought a Wimpy home. Why are you laughing?
Just because I'm aware that we've got a guest coming up, and I don't want to keep Richard waiting, so I'm hoping this story's not too...
It was many years ago, and I don't know whether they still build them like that, but if you wanted to hang a picture on the wall, you had to buy like a special picture hook that sprung open on the other side, because the walls were like cardboard. You couldn't even bang a nail in the wall. Literally, you'd have pictures falling off the wall. Well, I don't know whether they're still like that. Are brand new properties still like that? Are they worth the money? 08459 455 555. I'll pop up at 9 and we'll talk about that. Pop up.
On FM, AM and online. BBC Three Counties Radio.
It's all changed. I wish we could broadcast the bits that don't get broadcast. It's all changed at Watford Junction. More than £2 million has been spent to make the forecourt pedestrian free. But passengers and taxi drivers say it's led to gridlocked traffic and parking chaos. Every day, 15,000 passengers use the station. There's now a new short-stay car park and an improved bus station is nearing completion. Well, our reporter Justin Dealey has been to Watford train station this morning talking to taxi drivers.
Rushard, you're a taxi driver here. Can you just explain how bad this new system is?
Very bad. Waste of money. People are confused where to park. When the public come to drop off their loved ones, they're confused where to park. Before, they used to go in there and drop off people. Now, the dropping off place is right at the other side. Now, we've got a security guard here who's telling people not to park here, go over the other side. And they're having a go at him as well, or other people.
Do you think somebody's going to be seriously injured, if not killed here, unless something is done?
Yes.
It's really that bad?
Unless something is done, it's somebody is going to either get really hurt or killed. Some child as well.
So your message would be to the local council, the powers that be here at the train station, you must sort this out. This is a matter of urgency.
Sort it out. Sort it out, please. You know, it's a waste of money for all. I mean, for having a few boxes to sit on and cycle.
I mean, money's one thing, but you're talking about somebody's life here, right?
Yes. Yeah, somebody is really going to get hurt or killed.
Jimmy, can you just tell me how bad the situation is here? This new system, is it really that bad?
It is dangerous.
I've just spoken to a taxi driver. He said that somebody could be seriously injured, if not worse, unless something is done. Would you go along with that?
Yeah, certainly, yeah, definitely.
How concerned are you that could happen here?
I'm always, shaking because things could go wrong in there, to be honest with you.
So you're coming to work in fear that somebody is going to be run over here?
Yeah, run over, definitely.
Well, Richard Brooks is the commercial director from London Midland. Richard, you heard those comments there. Those drivers are worried that someone's going to get hurt or killed.
Yeah, I hear exactly what they say. I mean, as you say, millions of pounds have been spent on the station to redevelop, and there were some significant consultation exercises carried out with the taxi drivers before and all of the agencies involved. The objective was to actually make it safer by splitting the taxis and the buses and the cars to make sure they've got different areas to operate in. What we really need people to do is to, I'm afraid, change behaviour, because we have people still stopping on double yellow lines at the front of the station. There is a short-stay car park. I appreciate it's a little bit further to drive. It takes, I'd say, just under 2 minutes. I've done it myself.
But to then walk from that short stay car park to the station, that takes 2 minutes. But that's human nature, isn't it? If I'm dropping my mum off or gran or something at the station, I'm not going to go to the short stay car park. People will just drop off out the front, even if it's a double yellow line, 'cause it's only 30 seconds.
Well, that's the challenge we've got. We understand what the challenge is, and as I say, there's more than just us involved here, because there's the local agencies involved as well. We have met. I was down in Watford on Friday to have a look at the situation. We've met with Richard Harrington MP. We've met with the Mayor. We've got another meeting set up for this Friday. If we can find any further ways we can help this situation, we will do it. It's not about money. It's about actually getting people's behaviour to change after, 25 years of a station being in a certain way. I understand why it will take time.
You've got that meeting. Will you be inviting the taxi drivers along to have a chat with them?
We not to that meeting. We regularly talk to the taxi drivers. As I say, there's always a difference of opinion. People will have different opinions. But we did a lot of consultation with the taxi drivers. before the redevelopment was planned and all the plans were signed off by the relevant agencies. Yes, we have a challenge. We won't back away from that, which is why we're having these discussions. We've got the marshals in place that one of the taxi drivers referred to try and help people and tell them which way to go. We need to improve signage. We need to do that at the station, but there needs to be better signage coming from the streets around Watford so people know exactly where they're going. So I think there's a number of actions we can take to try and change this situation, while we look to see if there's always a better way to do it. As I say, we are working with the right people to try and solve
the taxi drivers have told us they were promised a mini roundabout to turn their cars around. Why didn't that happen?
Well, we've got the taxi drivers are now at the street at the side of the station that leads to the main car park. One of the things we're looking at is possibly even putting that into a one-way system and people being to exit out the other end. But there's a lot of discussions to be had before we get to another way of working here.
Why didn't they get the mini roundabout they say they were promised?
I'm not sure. I'll look into that. I'm not sure. I haven't got that level of detail in front of me.
Okay.
It's not something I've come across, but I'll speak to the local people about.
Okay, Richard, listen, I appreciate your time. We have to end it there. Thank you very much indeed. Richard Brooks, Commercial Director from London Midland. You are my reporters this morning. We've got Dealey out there, and he's excellent. By the way, I want to get the words of the man, woman and child on the street. If you use Watford Junction Station, what's it been like at the busier times? Are you happy with the refurbishments, the redevelopment, or has it made things worse? A lot of money, £2 million. If you've been there this morning, or you've been there this week, or the last couple of weeks, 08459 455 555. The changes to Watford Junction Station made things better or made things worse? Right, coming up to 8:30, here's the travel news now with Adam Glynn.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Starting with a quick look at the trains, and at the minute we haven't got any major problems. Things are running nicely into London and elsewhere. We've got no issues. On the roads, quite busy. The A1 approaching the Black Cat roundabout, you've got a bit of a queue from the St Neots junction now at the Great North Road, taking maybe 10-15 minutes to get through. A1M continues to look slow from Hitchin to Stevenage, and the A5 in Dunstable's looking pretty busy near to Church Street between the A505 and Lynch Hill, mainly on the southbound side. If you're heading down toward the M25 from Hemel Hempstead, the A41 is looking slow from the A414 down to junction 20 of the M25, and now it's basically one queue. Solid traffic, very slow moving from junction 19 at Watford to 15 at the M4. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Getting beds, hearts and bugs talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. With the 8:30 headlines, I'm Catherine Boyle. At least 3 people have been killed and more than 100 have been injured in 2 explosions at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. 4 men who discussed bombing Luton's Territorial Army Centre will be sentenced at Woolwich Crown Court later, and a Watford man's been jailed for 35 years for the near-fatal shooting of his older brother in his home in the town.
Beds, Herts and Bucks Sport.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
The Metropolitan Police will review their security plans for Sunday's London Marathon after the bombing in Boston. The London Marathon's chief executive, Nick Bittell, has confirmed his race will still go ahead. In football, Watford manager Gianfranco Zola may have to change his team's formation for tonight's championship match at Millwall. The Hornets have defensive problems, with Marco Cassetti suspended and 4 players injured. Zola says he does have some options and may change his system of using 3 centre-halves.
We'll see, something that I might do. I will consider, I will think about it. I'm already considering it, but I haven't made my mind up yet. We have a few little problems over there, but we come out with solutions previously, and we can do the same.
MK Dons are at Colchester tonight in League One, knowing they must win to stand any chance of reaching the playoffs. The Dons manager Carl Robinson has a fully fit squad to choose from, with the exception of goalkeeper Dave Martin. The Dons are now 4 points off the playoffs with 3 games remaining, but Robinson says it's still achievable.
They still feel it's an achievable goal. Listen, this team is capable of winning 3 games on the spin. If you do that to win, they've got to win 2. So you've got to look at the fact that over the next sort of few games, it's all or nothing.
In the conference, Luton Town are at home to Newport, with Jonathan Smith expected to play in defence again. And in League Two, Wycombe Wanderers host Northampton. Chairboys manager Gareth Ainsworth is set to make changes to his team, which beat Aldershot at the weekend. Finally, rugby and Worcester centre Josh Matavesi will appear at a disciplinary hearing later after being cited following a challenge on Neil de Kock during Sunday's defeat at Saracens in the Aviva Premiership. And that's your latest news and sport. More from me at 9 o'clock.
Who was the challenge on?
Neil de Kock.
Across beds, hearts and bucks, this is Iain Lee on BBC Three Counties Radio.
It's an unusual name. Bedfordshire man Terry Sullivan is unhappy about his hedge. The council cut it back more than a year ago. It's dying. He wants a new one or a fence, which is going to cost around £3,500. Go and have a look at Facebook, facebook.com/BBC3CR. A picture of the hedge is up. Would you continue to fight the council, or would you just move on? And also, I have a fear of butterflies. Imagine, oh dear, if 3 of them got stuck in your hair and 1 got stuck in your mouth. I also can't think of biting on the toothbrush bristles without getting very uncomfortable. What fear do you have that no one else understands? And I'm not going to laugh at any of them. Yes, I laughed at Catherine Boyle and her fear of biting on a nail file, because why on earth would she have a nail file in her mouth? 08459 455 555. And in light of the incident in Boston yesterday, are you reconsidering your plans to either run him or go and visit the London Marathon at the weekend? 08459 455 555. A row over an overgrown hedge outside a Bedfordshire house remains unresolved nearly a year after it was cut back to enable a pavement to be resurfaced. Terry Sullivan from Clifton says the pruning was excessive and the hedge is dying. Central Bedfordshire Council says its assessors are looking at Mr Sullivan's claim and apologise for the length of time it's taking. Well, our reporter, Ewan Duncan, has been finding out exactly what happened to the hedge.
It just looks horrible. From the outside, it looks dreadful. You know, it really isn't a pleasant sight at all. The amount of rain we had last year, drought's not affected it, but it's unbelievable, really, you know, and they just don't really want to know. They had an insurance company, and they sent a guy around to have a look at it, and he reckons it's not dead.
The hedge is about 8 foot high. You've got 1.5 foot, maybe 2 feet of greenery, and beneath it, it's just all brown shoots.
Yeah, that's it, basically. It hasn't grown anything this year at all. Normally it's sort of about 2 or 3 foot at the top. Haven't had it cut back this year. Haven't needed to, and it's just brown. And also they did it the wrong time of the year. I think there was a time factor on the growing. I'm not an expert, but neither are they by the looks of it. And the guy who actually cut it didn't even bother knocking on the door. He just turned up one day. It was absolutely chucking down like last summer, all summer. Cut it, took it away and disappeared. And I came out and took a couple of pictures of it, and I just couldn't believe what he'd done.
And the reason they cut it because it was overhanging this pavement, which they've resurfaced.
If it was overhanging, it was overhanging millimetres or a little bit. I mean, this has gone back so far. It's gone right back almost to the roots, and it was here planted, I think, when they built the houses in 1972. So there's been no issues before. So suddenly it's a big issue.
And what would you like to see done?
Well, basically, I mean, this insurance company, based in Wales, have sent this person round to inspect who knows nothing about trees. He's actually openly admitted that to me. Well, I'd like to see him pay for another hedge, basically, or a fence, because it's dead now. No good at all. There's a councillor got involved, and he said it's an ongoing thing, but it wasn't ongoing in February, so why is it suddenly ongoing now? Because of somebody's got involved, I think.
And there's no hope for this hedge as it stands. It will have to go eventually one way or another.
Well, I would think so. I mean, I had a guy round to have a look at it about replacing it back in October before the insurance quote, and he laughed. He couldn't believe that somebody had cut a hedge like this. He's a hedge expert, and well, he couldn't believe it. He said, who cut it, or should we say who slaughtered it, he actually said.
How much of an overhang was there?
Well, it's very little. I mean, you can tell from the top. Look, if you draw a straight line down, I mean, you're looking at probably maybe 2 or 3 inches, but it's not so much the overhang, it's how far they've cut it back, and then sort of wash their hands of it, because of when they asked permission to cut it, I couldn't get the guy I usually use to cut it for me, because I was going away overseas for about 5 weeks, and so they said they'd get somebody to do it. I said, well, yeah, you have my permission on the proviso that if it dies, you're responsible, and they've sort of tried to renege on that promise. If I'd have had my guy out, it would have been cut lovely. I mean, I try and keep it nice, because the land I can get a bit excited, and it can get overgrown very easily. I daren't have him down to have a look at it, because I think he'd probably cry. So it's just amazing, really.
Where do you see this going next?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to hope the council are going to contact me and sort of switch their opinion of it. Whether they bring an expert or so-called expert rather than the guy they send. It's not really hard to see. I mean, you and I know experts in fence fences or hedges, but, it looks pretty gruesome, doesn't it?
And we're standing on the other side of the fence now, Terry, and evidence that the hedge on the inside is dying away.
Well, yeah. I mean, the front is where they've trimmed it. Now they sort of moved into the inside, and when you just touch it, and it's all just, the leaves are just coming away. It's in front of you. It's just unbelievable, really. It's only taken a year, but it's just dying.
And in contrast to the front, there's still some greenery coming through here, as you'd expect, but that would be the normal growth pattern at the front of the house, and that's not happening. No,
I mean, it hasn't been cut for over 18 months now, because it was done October 2011 and it was due to be done sort of like June 2012, but they got at it first, so there was no point in me cutting it.
We can talk now to gardener Alex Henn from the Dutch Nursery Garden Centre near Hatfield. Morning, Alex.
Morning.
Leylandii hedges, they haven't got a great press, have they? They're a pain in the backside generally.
It's a shame, isn't it? Leylandii is actually a very good hedge and it makes a lovely hedge, but yeah, if left untrimmed, then you will have, it can be problematic. They get enormous, you try and cut them back. It's when they're not regularly trimmed or trimmed too hard, that's the problem.
Now, Terry, the gentleman involved here, says that he would trim his hedge once a year. Is once a year a good amount to trim your bush?
Perfect, especially for a Leylandii. They can be trimmed 2 or 3 times a year, but once a year is absolutely fine. Yeah, perfect. And to do it every year, that's the key. It's when people, not Terry, but other people have a hedge and they leave it for 20 years and it's 50 foot tall, it's always going to be problematic. But yes, once a year or even up to 3 times a year in the warm months is ideal for them.
What happens when you cut this type of hedge right back? I don't know if you've seen the photographs on Facebook, but it does look like it's been hacked.
Yeah. No, I know what it'll look like, because the thing with Leylandii, when you cut it back into the old wood, i.e. where it's not green, i.e. you cut it back hard, it's not going to regenerate and it's not going to regrow. So unfortunately for Terry, that hedge, or where it looks dead, that's not going to regrow now, that bit of hedging.
So that's it. He's going to have a horrible brown hedge for the rest of its stay there.
Yeah. That's not going to regenerate. Now, a lot of other conifers at the garden centre, customers come up to me and say, Alex, what would you grow as a hedge? And I say, Leylandii is fantastic. Everyone wants it because it's the quickest growing. That's the thing. So I'd say Leylandii is great, but do trim it from a young age. Trim it every year, at least once.
What are the ones you're not supposed to plant because their roots grow really quickly?
There's none that you can't really plant.
I thought there were some that kind of councils were clamping down on because their roots spread so quickly that they're a menace to neighbours.
What, hedging, you mean?
Yeah. Or maybe it was conifers.
No, there may be some local councils, but there's not one nationwide that you can't plant. A lot of people are resisting planting Leylandii, but as I say, it's a very good hedge, but there's none that you can't plant.
Listen, there are loads of part-time gardeners who all think that they know what they're doing. When it comes to trimming things like Leylandii, should you always get a professional in?
No, not at all. If it's an old hedge and a mature hedge and it needs scaffolding and things like that, absolutely call somebody, appropriate tree surgeon or very good landscaper, somebody on recommendation ideally, or even come into the garden centre and ask me or ask other people at other garden centres. But try and get professionals. But if you're planting a Leylandii yourself, it's absolutely no problem at all to prune yourself as long as you do it regularly. So once a year or twice a year in the warm months is very important.
Alex Henn, thank you very much indeed, from the Dutch Nursery Garden Centre near Hatfield. Well, lots of you have been commenting on Facebook about Terry's hedge. Rick says, it's infuriating having overgrown hedges on paths, along with cars parked on the pavement. Add a wheelie bin selfishly left on the pavement too. You just can't get past without hitting a wing mirror. Colin, I've got to say, there's not much support for Terry here. Colin says, what a mess. I can't see the pavement edging. Oh, hang on, there's a bit of support for him, actually. But it looks as if they've cut back a foot or so beyond that. Why? A couple of inches would surely have allowed access for their needs. Cutting most conifers past the last greenery means it will not grow back. Charles said the top part will keep growing, but the bottom part of the hedge will never grow back. Better to take it out and put up a nice fence. It would look better. I prefer fences to hedges. I'm a fence man. Matthew says, nice hedge. He shouldn't have let it grow over the path. It's his own fault. And Bob says it's his own fault. The council is quite right, and he should be charged by them for the cost. He should take it out and put in a good fence at his own cost. Well, 08459 455 555. If you want to give me a call, just time to tell you what's happening later on BBC Three Counties. Three Counties Sport is back from 7 tonight with 3 more live football commentaries. There'll be full match coverage of Watford versus Millwall, the MK Dons against Colchester, and Luton at home to Newport. You can choose your team to listen to tonight from 7 o'clock. Quick look at the front pages, although, to be honest, they're all, rightfully so, covering the bomb blast in Boston that happened yesterday at the end of the marathon. Daily Telegraph, bomb carnage at Marathon, and Big Ben to fall silent for Thatcher. There we go. But they're all using the same photo. I think it's one of the few times I've seen where all the front pages have the same news photograph. The Guardian is the only one that seems to be slightly different. Terror at the finish line. Twin blasts hit Boston Marathon. At least 2 killed and dozens injured. We think it's 3 killed now and over 100 injured. Explosion hit runners at end of race. Obama, we will find out who did this. Also, Westminster bells to fall silent to Mark Thatcher funeral. To Mark Thatcher funeral, not Mark Thatcher's funerals. Eh? The Independent. Terror at the finishing line. At least 2 dead, well, it's 3, and many injured in Boston Marathon bomb bloodbath. They're also talking about what? No ding dong. Big Ben silence for Thatcher funeral. And activists, if you go to page 6 and 7, activists plan guerrilla protests at funeral march. Plans to mark the funeral of Baroness Thatcher with approved and guerrilla protests along the route of the ceremonial procession gathered pace yesterday as it was announced that Big Ben will be silenced in her honour. More than 300 people had last night already signed up to turn their backs on the former Prime Minister's Union flag-draped coffin. Scotland Yard refused to confirm claims from organisers that the symbolic protest had been given formal permission. If that's all they do, it's, in the great scheme of things, it's not that bad, is it? The Times, 2 bombs bring carnage to the Boston Marathon. The ground shook, there were billows of smoke. It's all the same story, really. The Mail, bloodbath at the Marathon. The Daily Express, massacre at the Marathon, although they do give a lot of space to the only diet you'll ever need. Look younger, live longer and feel great. Inside Today, body boosting tips. The 48-hour diet. Plan prepared by Amanda Hamilton, nutrition expert on ITV's This Morning, and we all go, who? The Sun, marathon slaughter, and they have a little bit. Ozzy on rift with Sharon. Ozzy Osbourne has blamed his rift with wife Sharon on her obsession with stardom. Rocker Ozzy, 64, living apart from the former X Factor judge, said he hated celebrity, but she adored being on TV. Hey, hang on a second. Ozzy Osbourne hasn't got a new album coming out with Black Sabbath, has he? Really? Oh, no. 8:45, travel news. Here's Adam Glynn.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Starting to look quite slow on the northbound M1 at present as you go past Watford at junction 5 and then further up from 12 at Flitwick to 13 at Bedford. It's looking pretty busy on that northbound carriageway. Southbound a little bit clearer than it was, but if you're using the A1 as your route of choice this morning, that's still slow southbound. First off at the Black Cat roundabout, 10-15 minute delays there. Again on the A1M, southbound past Hitchin and Stevenage, and as you get in toward London, Boreham Wood looking slow with queues from the Holiday Inn junction through to Mill Hill Circus. In Marlow, the A404's got a bit of a queue northbound. Speed sensors picking up that it's slowed right down between the Marlow junction and the M40 at junction 4. The M40's your route into London. It's not looking too bad. As you get toward the M25, a little bit slow on the exit slip there. And on the M25, we've got heavy traffic from Watford through to the M4 junction 19 to 15. Trains running OK. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. Morning, 8:46, Tuesday the 16th of April. I'm Iain Lee, and these are your headlines on BBC Three Counties Radio. At least 3 people have been killed and more than 100 have been injured in 2 explosions at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. 4 men who discussed bombing Luton's Territorial Army Centre will be sentenced at Woolwich Crown Court later. In sport, the government says it's absolutely confident this weekend's London Marathon can be kept safe and secure. Right, coming up to 8:47, let's get the latest weather now. It's Elizabeth Rossini.
Beds, Herts and Bucks weather.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Good morning. It should brighten up after the next couple of hours or so. Certainly we've seen quite a lot of cloud this morning. It's a very weak weather front giving us that thick cloud, a noticeable southwesterly breeze and a few outbreaks of drizzle here and there. But look, it's going to be a much better afternoon. Some good spells of brightness, some sunshine. Temperatures rising to 14 or 15 degrees Celsius, 59 in Fahrenheit in Luton, Milton Keynes and in Stevenage and Hertford too. So it won't be a bad end to the day. A fine evening, and then overnight tonight we're going to do the same thing all over again. Another weak weather front coming through. This is a warm front, meaning very mild afternoon, but we'll see thickening cloud overnight, southwesterly breeze into tomorrow morning, and again a bit of a damp start to the day, but that should soon clear. Some brightness, some sunshine again tomorrow afternoon, and temperatures all the way up to 18 or 19 degrees Celsius. It's well above average for this time of year, really. On Thursday and Friday it's looking quite showery, quite blustery showers as well at times. The temperatures will take a bit of a dip down to 11 or 12 degrees Celsius, but still pleasant where we do get some brightness and sunshine. For the weekend it's looking fine and dry with some good spells of sunshine, still quite breezy, a southwesterly wind, and temperatures hovering between 11 and 13 degrees Celsius. So it's not looking too bad. Spring's set to stay, I think, for the rest of the week. That's the forecast.
Every weekday from 3, Roberto Perrone with the best local news stories.
I get to meet a lot of really interesting people with the most amazing stories.
We feel as if we haven't been taken notice of.
Yesterday we heard that the bank had gone, but today it's still there.
The cat got delivered up in Kabul. You should be back in the UK in 2 months.
With the best local talking points.
Do some of the bakers have flapjack fights?
No, of course not, Roberto. Well, not in our shops.
Roberto Perrone, weekdays from 3.
On BBC Three Counties Radio.
Morning, this is Iain Lee, BBC Three Counties Radio. The last 12 minutes of the show, with in the light of the Boston Marathon tragedy that happened yesterday, are you reconsidering your plans about either running in or going to see the London Marathon this weekend? I took one of my boys last year, loved it, had a great time. I'm not going to go this year, and I'm sure it's going to be absolutely fine. Of course it will, but I'm not going to go to the marathon this year. 08459 455 555. Have you changed your plans for the London Marathon this weekend? Or are you one of those, oh no, if we change our behaviour, they've won? I'm more than happy to change my behaviour if it means I stand less chance of being injured. I'm happy to change my behaviour. 08459 455 555. We're also on a slightly less serious note, talking about things that you are afraid of that nobody else understands. I flippin' hate moths and butterflies. They disgust me. Horrible, vile creatures. Ugh. A lot of you have been texting in 81333. Starting your text 3CR with your name. Bella in Newport Pagnell says, I have a fear of people touching eyebrows. It sets my teeth on edge. Well, aren't we strange human beings? We're all a bit weird. I've often thought this. Every single one of us, even the straightest person that you know, is a weirdo in some way. And it's odd, isn't it? That must come from, not to denigrate that in any way, Bella, you just wonder where that comes from. Where that fear of people touching eyebrows possibly comes from. Nick of Barkway says, on the subject of things I cannot stand, I also hate cotton wool. Hate it. Also, velvet-type material makes my skin crawl. My ex-wife... Oh, I'm getting really uncomfortable reading this. My ex-wife bought velvet scatter cushions for the furniture. I sat on the floor. Luckily, when she went, they went too. Nick of Barkway. Well done, Nick. My fear is waxworks and fireworks. I know, I'm weird. Thanks, Joe in Whitchurch, soon to be Bourton on the Water, moving today. Oh, good luck with the move. Yeah, well done with that. Waxworks, they don't scare me, but they're Madame Tussauds and all these waxworks places, it's an odd thing, isn't it? Hey, let's spend about 35 quid each on going to look at some giant candles that sort of look a little bit like some famous people, but you need to read their names to find out exactly who they are. It's a strange phenomenon, isn't it? The Waxworks Museum. What's the one, is it in Brighton? Louis Tussauds. I think they may have closed down now, Louis Tussauds. Go and Google it. Because the waxworks are appalling. Oh, it's awful. It's just like kind of giant wax. They barely look like human beings. They're so badly formed. Why would anyone... There's a brilliant book. What's it called? I think it may... it's got a swear word in the title. It's Rollocks to Alton Towers. I think we can just about get away with that. And it lists all the kind of alternatives to Alton Towers. Some of them are superb. There's a lawnmower museum somewhere in the country. Who would go to a lawnmower museum? 08459 455 555. Now, the big story of the day, of course, is what happened in Boston. At least 3 people have been killed and around 140 have been injured in 2 explosions at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. The blasts happened seconds apart in a crowded spectator area. I warn you now, the little bit of audio I'm going to play is quite unpleasant. This is when the bombs went off. So it's quite an horrific clip there. 23,000 runners were taking part in the race, watched by hundreds of thousands of spectators. Stuart Singer is a British runner who just finished the race.
Met up with my wife just at the end. We started to walk back to the hotel, and then we heard the explosions and then lots of sirens. We didn't think too much of it. We just thought, what was that bang? And then carried on. And then we saw the news, and it was just horrific, to be honest.
Well, TV footage showed scenes of chaos as emergency workers broke down fences to try to reach the injured. The street was spattered with blood and strewn with debris. David Abel is from the Boston Globe.
We could see what was clearly the most horrific thing anyone could see, which was a lot of people lying on a sidewalk, their limbs mangled, their eyes vacant, shattered glass mixed with a lot of blood.
The Governor of Massachusetts, Deval Patrick, says the authorities are doing everything they can to get to the bottom of what happened.
There will be a heightened law enforcement presence consistent with the severity and seriousness of the ongoing investigation. People should expect that there will be random checks of backpacks and other parcels. And we just ask everyone to be patient with that inconvenience for the time being. It is for the public's safety.
Well, President Obama has pledged to offer whatever assistance is necessary to find out those who carried the attacks. In a television address, he said his thoughts and prayers are with the people of Boston.
Boston is a tough and resilient town. So are its people. I'm supremely confident that Bostonians will pull together, take care of each other, and move forward as one proud city. And as they do, the American people will be with them every single step of the way.
Well, it's understood that security arrangements for Sunday's London Marathon will now be reviewed. The Mayor of London, Boris Johnson, says it's only prudent to do so. Well, our reporter Justin Dealey is in Bushey this morning. Justin.
Thank you, Ian. Just outside the David Lloyd Health and Fitness Club here. We'll talk to some marathon runners in just a second, but Mark is with me live at the radio car. Mark, you've been a spectator at the London Marathon many times before. You were thinking about going up on Sunday. What's going to happen now?
We certainly wouldn't go. Got wife, 2 children. I just certainly can't take the risk of a similar thing happening down there.
I mean, do you think they can keep everything secure? We're not trying to scare people this morning, but of course there's thousands upon thousands of people up there.
Well, there's a 26-mile route that they need to police, and the crowds will be 5 or 6 deep at most points. I think it's impossible to police it, so they'll do their best, but I don't think they can, no.
So for you, simply, you won't be taking that chance?
Not at all, no.
OK, thank you very much indeed for your time. That's Mark there. So earlier on, Ian, I spoke to some marathon runners. They're going to be going to London on Sunday. You've been asking the question this morning, will it now change their plans? And this is what they had to say.
Well, so it's your 10th marathon on Sunday. Will your plans now change after the terrible events of yesterday?
I don't think so. I mean, I haven't had long to think about it because I only heard the news this morning. But I always think with these dreadful events that something different, you can never predict when they're going to happen, and I think the best thing is to just carry on as normal, because presumably the people who organise these horrific things want to disrupt people's lives. So
exactly what Matt Loddy said earlier on. He said, if I don't go on Sunday, it's letting them win, and you've got the same attitude, haven't you?
Exactly, yes. Obviously you don't want to do anything really stupid, but I think it would be exactly giving them what they want. Building
You're incredibly fit, by the way. It's your 10th marathon. You do this, obviously, on a regular basis. You must feel exhausted off the back of it, surely?
Well, not on that regular basis. Yeah. I've never done more than one in a year. Well, actually, I did one in November.
You've done 10 London marathons?
Yes, but it's once a year. So,
but even so, yeah. Some people have done none.
Yes, I'm not getting any faster. I just try not to get too much slower now as I get older. Yeah.
Well, best of luck for Sunday.
Thank you very
much.
Cheers.
Well, Steve, on Sunday it's going to be your 4th London Marathon. You were looking forward to it. Are your plans going to change at all after what we've seen happen in the last 24 hours?
No, plans are all staying the same at the moment.
Is it a case of I will carry on because I won't let them win?
It's a case of I will carry on from all of the information I've received so far from the London Marathon organisation with regards to security and organisation. So
they've already been in touch since yesterday saying this has happened, but don't worry, we've got extra security measures in place for both yourself and, of course, your family that will be up there watching you.
Yeah, that's the worrying thing about other people. I think about myself. So obviously I'll speak to my mum and see if she still plans on coming to watch.
And would you prefer it if your mum didn't go?
I'll leave that decision up to her. Obviously, for safety perspective, maybe so. Yeah.
But it's reassuring you've had contact from the organisation, the people that are organising this already.
Oh, very reassuring, yeah.
Well, Justin, it does make you consider... I mean, as I said, I took my boy last year, maybe it was the year before, to the London Marathon. We had a fantastic time, and it was great for him to see it, and it was all very exciting, and everyone was lovely and happy. I'm not going to take him this weekend.
Yeah, I heard those comments earlier on. I think a lot of people would say, I don't blame you for that. A case this morning of us not trying to scare people, but of course, after what's happened, it does make you think. The London Marathon coming so quickly after those events. My parents will be going up to the London Marathon on Sunday, and I'm just being honest, from a personal point of view, I'm not particularly happy about that. So I can understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Justin, thanks very much for that this morning. Right, well, that's it. That's your lot. What a packed show. Let's get the travel news now. Here's Adam Glynn.
Beds, Herts and Bucks travel.
BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thanks, Ian. Now, we've just had a call saying that in Milton Keynes, the A421 standing way going eastbound just before the hospital, there's a broken down car, a very long queue on the approach. If you're heading for the motorways, M1's quite busy, mainly northbound at the minute. Watford Junction 5's looking slow, and further up, Flitwick to Bedford Junction 12 to 13 is also looking busy. The A1 delays at the Black Cat roundabout, about 10 minutes worth as you get stuck between the St Neots Junction and the roundabout. The A1M continues to look busy between Hitchin and Stevenage, and we've got queues on the CCTV cameras in Boreham Wood if you're going into London on the A1, Stirling Corner through to Mill Hill Circus. The A10 is looking slow as well. First off through Chesham between the Great Cambridge Road and Winston Churchill Way, and then on the other side of the M25 as you go through Enfield, it's busy between Baltimore Lane and Carter Hatch Lane. Marlow and the A404, we've got a queue approaching the M40 at High Wycombe. The A41's looking slow, and we've also got a bit of traffic on the A5, mainly through Dunstable around the A505 junction. Adam Glynn, BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Adam. I'm back tomorrow at 6. JVS is up next. Until tomorrow from me, ta-ta.
Getting beds, hearts and bucks talking.
This is BBC Three Counties Radio.
Thank you, Ian. Good morning. Welcome to the JVS show. I'm Jonathan Vernon-Smith. It's Tuesday. And on this morning's big phone-in, I'm asking, would you rather spend